Good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome back. I call to order the special meeting of the Mayor and City Council at 3:30 p.m. Welcome and thank you for those who are here. Today is a good showing. Thank you so much for this important topic we're discussing. And thank you to those viewing remotely. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Here.
Councilmember Ibarra's not present. Councilmember Figueroa?
Here.
Councilmember Charette?
I'm here.
Mayor Pro Tem Camas?
Here.
Councilmember Flores?
Present.
Councilmember Ortiz? Here. And Mayor Tran?
Here. Thank you. We will now go to invocation and pledge. Chaplain Joseph Paul Lujan from Victory Outreach Church will lead tonight's invocation. Please approach the podium at this time. And Councilmember Flores, will you lead us in pledge today? Please all rise.
Amen if you bow your heads with me. Lord, your word says in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not unto your own understandings, but acknowledge you in all our ways, and that you would make our path straight. So this evening we come to you in prayer, Lord, trusting in you, seeking your wisdom through prayer and scripture, getting godly counseling and acting within integrity to bring glory to your name, acknowledging that while we plan, God, that you will direct each and every one of our steps. Whatever's on the agenda, Lord, we ask for your guidance. We ask to your presence to be here, God. Lead us in a way that will benefit our city, help our people. Lord, we ask for your help. Thank you, Father. In Jesus' name, amen.
Place your right hands over your heart.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chaplain Joseph Paul Lujan, and thank you, Councilmember Flores. We will now move on to public comments. At this time, public comments will be heard for items on the agenda only. To address the City Council, everyone must complete a speaker card and provide it to the City Clerk. Only those speaker cards turned into the City Clerk will be allowed to address the City Council. No late cards will be accepted. Each person should state their name for the record before beginning their comments. As your name is called, please line up behind the podium. We have two podiums available for your convenience. Please proceed to either one as soon as your name is called. Please note your name will be only called once. If you do not respond when called, you may forfeit your opportunity to speak. If you require Spanish interpretation, we do have an interpreter on site. Please raise your hand at this time to indicate you need interpreting assistance. In addition, we have interpreting listening devices available in the back. We ask that you please observe proper decorum and do not speak out of turn or make comments from your seat. If you wish to address the Mayor and City Council, please be sure to submit a speaker slip. If you speak out of turn or disrupt the meeting, a warning may be given and/or you will be asked to leave the meeting pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.9 and Penal Code 403.
En este momento se escucharán los comentarios públicos solo para artículos de la agenda. Para dirigirse al Consejo Municipal, cada individuo debe completar una tarjeta de orador. Se debe completar la tarjeta de orador y entregarla a la Secretaría Municipal en este momento. Solo aquellas tarjetas de orador entregadas a la Secretaría Municipal podrán dirigirse al Consejo Municipal. No se aceptarán tarjetas tardías. Cada persona debe indicar su nombre para el registro antes de comenzar sus comentarios. Al ser llamado, por favor, forme una fila en el orden anunciado. Disponemos de 2 podios para su conformidad. Dirigirse a cualquiera de ellos tan pronto como se llame su nombre. Si necesita interpretación en español, tenemos un intérprete presente. Por favor, levante la mano en este momento para indicar que requiere servicios. También tenemos aparatos disponibles para escuchar la Junta en español. Le pedimos que por favor observe el debido decoro y no hable fuera de turno ni realice comentarios desde su asiento. Si desea dirigirse al alcalde, a la alcaldesa y al Consejo Municipal, asegúrese de presentar una hoja de orador. Si habla fuera de turno o interrumpe la reunión, podrá recibir una advertencia y o se le pedirá que abandone la sesión conforme a la sección 54957.9 del Código Gubernamental y la sección 403 del Código Penal.
Thank you. Gracias. We have, I believe, 4 speakers. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Once your name is called, please line up to the podium. Madam City Clerk.
Jim Mulvihill, Shazette Scott, Marilena Enriquez, and Christian Shaughnessy.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Jim Mulvihill. I'm really impressed by the completeness of the document that's going to be presented tonight, and in the candid manner that the data was presented in. Someone said, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And I think also with the really the straightforwardness of it, the data, and I'm looking at a number of places in here, the honesty at which it says, you may not reach your goals. And that often isn't provided. I'm looking at page 63, for example, in which the cost for the beds is severely increased if the capacity is not met. In other words, the more beds that are occupied, the lower the cost per bed is going to be. And it's listed there. And there's a number of other places that is such, I think, straightforwardness is provided. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please state your name.
Hello, my name is Shazette Scott, and I am with Family Assistance Program. We operate several units here in San Bernardino County that help and assist our marginalized communities. We are supportive of all the efforts of the city of San Bernardino, as well as our other cities we have in our jurisdiction, in developing navigation center, shelter beds, because of the funding mechanisms that have been cut federally. Nonprofits in our area are a little bit more strapped in the creation of shelter beds, transitional housing beds. And we would really like to support the city in doing and coming and partnering with us nonprofits to continue to create these mechanisms and to assist us with creating beds and shelters. I am so excited about this navigation center. I have been. And as I have been seeing across the county, the West End is doing a wellness center. Ontario now has a wellness center with housing beds. Fontana has a few. Victorville has their wellness campus. And I know it has been the opinion of some on this board, on the city council, that San Bernardino was not going to pursue much of a relief as far as this navigation center and shelter beds until other cities could manage their homeless population so that there's no, which is impossible, transitory acceptance or adoption of clients from different areas. Well, now everybody's doing that. It's the popular thing now. So I'm so excited. Family Assistance is excited to partner with the city, and we encourage you. We are here to help and support this navigation center and any other homeless efforts to produce beds in this county. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please state your name.
So, switch that ballot. The records down goes record.
That's my first time here. Okay, my name is Faith Gamble. I'm a resident here in San Bernardino. I'm also SEIU 2015, and I'm here, thank you. I'm here to complain. The complaint is that the Union Hall where we meet at 195 Arrow is full of homeless. There's like really ditches on the sides of the building, and both sides are full. And we're afraid. I know I am. When I drive up there and see them, I get back in the car. But I just wish someone could come and find these people and put them where they should be or whatever. Because now some of them, they leave, come back in the evening, they mess all around the place, and really, it's really bad. So that's my complaint.
Thank you. Next speaker, please state your name.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, members of the council, our new Mayor Pro Tem. Congratulations on your position. I think today I'm going to keep it short and sweet. A lot of folks have seen recent national and statewide events, and so I do want to give thanks to the staff for actually mentioning that part of the regulatory background of what's occurring with this navigation center and around the nation has actually increased federal law enforcement having to do with immigration status, to say the least. In the cities of San Diego and many others across our nation, we have had raids over at shelters of any kind. It used to be that was not the case in our nation, that ICE would actually actively and in written format actually not target those areas. So I would just like to behoove and beseech the council that when you speak to the service provider, the eventual service provider that we know for certain will be operating this navigation center, that you ensure that immigration status information like that is only collected when it's truly existentially necessary and relevant for the client, or perhaps not at all. And so with that being the case, it's something that many folks in the community have been concerned about. Many folks in the community have spoken to me about it regarding that item over on the packet. And so I think it would be a great example for the multiple factions, a great thing for the multiple factions on the council to come together to do. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please state your name.
My name is Melina Enriquez. Hello. So I am here to speak on the navigation system and the navigation center, and just saying that hopefully this way we are able to minimize the homeless population of any kind, in any form. And if you need volunteers, well, the Youth Advisory Board is more than welcome in assisting. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comments. We will now move on to the discussion item, which is the homeless workshop. Could we begin with the staff's presentation?
Madam Mayor and City Council, we've, in accordance with what you put forward as for a future special meeting, we have put together a presentation, a fairly extensive presentation to try to go over all the elements of homelessness and the impacts both on the homeless as well as the community for your consideration. And we're here to discuss the different items. We also put in there the navigation center and some discussions we've been having just preliminary with the county to see whether or not how you want to deal with the navigation center moving forward, whether you want it to be a city navigation center, whether you want it to be a regional with other cities partnership, or have more county involvement.
Thank you.
And with that, I will turn it over to Cassandra.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. So today's presentation, we are going to provide you with an overview of the city's homeless response system, and we will also share updates on city-funded homeless initiatives. If you looked in your packet, you see we probably have around 68.
Can we turn off that mic because I think it prevents you from speaking louder for folks to hear.
If I'm scared. Okay.
Yeah, we have roughly 68 slides. It's a lot of information to cover. We're going to bring you up to speed over the last 2 years. If at all possible, I would ask that you please write down your questions, reserve them for the end, just so that we can kind of continue with the flow. And I'm almost positive that whatever questions you have, we will address them as this presentation moves forward. So one other thing, I'm not going to let this be just me speaking, so I'm going to do something a little different. I'm actually going to bring up members from my team to talk about different components, and I'll introduce you to them as they come along. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Just to let you know, in today's presentation, we're going to discuss the following topics, and that's the city's homeless response, our street outreach and encampment resolution fund team. We will have information from our Lieutenant Luna, who will talk about the city's peace team, as well as the police plans to create a new street medicine program in connection with the local organization. We will talk about the city's motel voucher program, which in turn acts as the city's interim shelter while we're in the process of developing the city's navigation center, SB Hope Campus. We will talk about the city's rapid rehousing program, our mobile showers and laundry services, which covers public hygiene. We will talk about both navigation centers, the one in partnership with Lutheran and our SB Hope Campus. We will also talk about some affordable housing expansions, some things we have currently in the housing pipeline. And we will conclude with challenges and opportunities, but that's actually not correct. We will conclude with questions and answers at the end. So before moving into programs and activities, I just want to highlight the importance of talking about our city's current homeless landscape. I'm going to give you some information that seems very familiar or repetitive, but it's for a reason. Not to sound redundant, but our city does continue to have the highest concentration of homeless people in the county. We have nearly 40% of the county's homeless that reside in our streets. And basically, in our point in time count, there was an 8% increase in homelessness. It states that the city currently has 1,535 homeless compared to 2024, which was 1,417. Now, I want to say something right here because as we move forward in this presentation, it may seem like we're contradicting ourselves. So yes, the point in time count for 2025 reflects an overall number of 1,535. You can drive around the street and see that that number is not accurate. So experts will tell you you should probably take your point in time count number and double, if not triple it, if you want a more accurate reflection. So later in this presentation, when members of my team tell you that they've engaged with 4,344 people, that's the reason why. But the point in time count is something that is required with our federal funds, some of our state funds, and it serves an overall purpose. We can use that number. That's okay. We can use that number to apply for various grants, and we use that number in our auditing, for our auditing purposes. So just know that no, it's not accurate, but this is a tool that we have to utilize. So outside of that, on the ground level, some of the challenges that my staff is recognizing is that we continue to have a high rate of unsheltered homeless. We're talking about, of course, if you're homeless, you don't have a permanent place of residency. But when we say unsheltered, we're talking about individuals who are truly living in places not meant for human habitation. They're living in the streets. They're living at the parks, in their cars. That number is increasing year after year. We're having a continued high number of housing instability. And then there's also the challenge in regards to the outreach capacity. We have a large geographical area in our city. It's 62 square miles. And we are very grateful with the outreach services that we have with our partner agency, Salvation Army. But it's a lot of area to cover. And so as we move forward, are going to talk about the need to expand just to make sure we can have greater coverage. Now, this slide here is just a snapshot. It covers the last 5 years regarding the city's homeless data demographic. I want you to know that the year 2021 is intentionally left off, and that was because of the height of COVID, and most counties in the state did not conduct a point-in-time count. I am going to reference 2025 point-in-time count data throughout this entire presentation because our 2026 point-in-time count will not take place until January 22nd. But again, as I was mentioning, if you look, what you're seeing is that the highest majority increase continues to be the unsheltered population. And also, here's some demographics that I want you to understand. Our city has nearly 50% who are chronically homeless. And chronically homeless, according to HUD, is an individual who has had at least 12 months of homelessness in a consecutive time period, or at least 4 episodes of homelessness, 12 months or longer, over a 3-year span. If you work with the homeless population, or if you know someone who does, they will tell you that dealing with chronically homeless individuals, that's the most difficult population to work with because a year or longer on the street, you're dealing with compound issues, you're dealing with mental health, you're dealing with substance abuse problems. The trust is not there. People are on survival mode. You can give them a map to tell them where to go to sign up for housing, but a lot of times the thought process is, where am I going to get my next meal? And I need to secure my place where I'm sleeping tonight. So outside of the high level of chronically homeless, you also see that we have a fourth of our unhoused population who have a mental health disorder. Nearly 40% suffer from a substance abuse disorder. You have 69% who have no income. And these data points just reflect that the city's unhoused population or homeless population has intensive service needs. It's increasingly complex. It's not an easy fix where you can just connect somebody to a bed. It's very labor intensive. And then also working with the unhoused population, you typically have to have on average anywhere from 15 to 19 touches. It's not, you just go and talk to somebody a couple times and you connect them to services. It takes time. So I just want to point that out so that we can understand the level of difficulty that we are dealing with. Now, I also want to touch bases on the regulatory landscape. I think it's important because there's been some significant shifts that were taking place in regards to our federal administration. I'm not commenting on if it's good or bad. I just want to make you aware of some of these changes and policies that were coming down. So if you're not familiar, HUD is the largest contributor of funds to COCs, continuums of care. And in our particular case, our county acts as our COC. Not all counties are the COCs. Ours just happens to be that lead agency where they receive these funds from the federal government. Then they'll vet out organizations, which include cities and nonprofits, and they'll award the funds, they'll oversee the funds. All right, late last year, HUD had signaled a series of policy shifts that were intended to reshape how COCs fund all allocations and how applicants are evaluated. And these proposed changes reflected a stronger federal emphasis on enforcement of anti-camping and a prohibition of public drug use. And it's not that it just affects the jurisdictions. If you are a nonprofit and you are operating in a city that does not have enforcement measures, you will not be prioritized for COC funding. This was what was coming down. So there was definitely a greater accountability, and there's a higher focus on treatment and recovery. That's great. None of that is bad. The real issue was that the funding structure for Tier 1 funds was going to shift. Tier 1 funds includes permanent supportive housing. So the shift was going to be where Tier 1 receives 90% funding allocation. It was going to be reduced down to 30%. So that's a 60% gap, which meant that there was going to be a lot of people who were going to lose their rental subsidies, a lot of people who were going to fall over into homelessness. And that was the greater concern in a lot of cases, because you have people, unfortunately, who are going to always be low income or extremely low income. They're elderly, they're disabled, or it could just be young families or what have you. But you're going to always have that core group of people who need that help. So on December 23rd, a federal judge issued a temporary injunction requiring HUD to process the 2025-2026 COC renewals the same as they did for the 2024-2025 COC renewals. So what this means is there has been a temporary halt, which will maintain existing funding protections. This is going to provide short-term stability for currently funded programs. And this injunction pauses HUD's proposed changes, but it does not reverse the broader policy direction. So this is just, I heard the comment, and we just need to be mindful as a city. Everything is fine for now, but we have to be prepared for that shift. Should a federal court decide that we will move forward in the direction that this federal administration wants to move forward in, there's nothing we can do. If we want the funding and we don't want to find ourselves in trouble, we're going to have to be in a position where we comply. And so I just want to make you aware. But as of right now, everything will continue the same, at least until June or July of this year. That's where we are. All right. So I'm going to introduce Ms. Trina Perez, who is our Housing Division Manager, because understanding the regulatory shifts, understanding our homeless landscape or background, that's just one part of the picture. The other half is knowing when and how funding decisions are made. And so what we're going to do now is provide you with an overview of our funding cycle, and she'll cover the funding sources and the challenges that we face.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I know some of you. Can you hear it now? Okay. I know some of you have seen these slides, and I'm not going to lie. I stole them from a previous presentation from Mr. Lampy, so thank you. But here, when we're doing this, we're working with multiple funding sources. And when we have to do that, we have to also manage the multiple funding sources. Each funding source typically requires its own plans, its own amendments, noticing, public hearings, council actions, and submission to either HUD for the federal funding or HCD for state funding. Obligation, all of them require obligating and contracting. Each one is different for each single funding source. That can be the procurement rules, that can be procurement requirements, contract terms, and then documentation. And then there's actually expending the funds. And this doesn't mean just paying the invoices. Each source requires eligibility documentation, cost allocations, reporting, and audit supporting documents. The more sources we combine, the more coordination and need to keep approvals, procurement, and construction schedules and reimbursements aligned. This is just a small list of all of the funds that our division does manage. The red are the ones that are the one-time funding sources. And again, we're just expressing here, each funding source, again, has to go through HUD or HCD for approval. It has all the same requirements. Each funding source requires state or federal approval. And then here for those one-time funding sources were some of the deadlines, any schedule changes to the construction projects. We're going. Oh, thank you. Any schedule changes, any delays in the projects, we're now going back. We're going to HUD, we're going to HCD, asking them for an amendment, maybe reallocation. But of course, we're coming to you guys first, to your team, to direct us on, do you want this movement? And again, there's public noticing, there's regulatory requirements. It's not a quick fix. This sometimes can take 2 to 3 months just to draft documents to get these plans in place. And it requires a lot of time. And we just want to make that note anytime we move any of this money. So some of the funding challenges, as we know, we have the Hope Campus, which we've been allocating a substantial amount of our funds to. And again, these are some approximate figures. The math I did notice is a smidge off, but the campus right now is $35 million. We're moving some of the CDBG funds, which will be coming back to you at a later date, to help fill some of that funding gap. One of the options for the funding gap is going to the county to ask them for some funding assistance. And as you can see, the expected shortfall right now is approximately $11 million. And again, you can see all the requirements. We have to come back to you to ask for approval. We have to go to the state or federal, both actually in this problem, because we do have so much money, different sources layered in the campus itself. And then Lutheran Social Service, same thing. It's a home key project. The city is jointly liable with Lutheran. So we are on the hook. The city is on the hook to pay to ensure the construction. And you guys have previously approved the 1.7 in PLHA, which we are currently working through all of those agreements, getting HCD approval now that you have given us the authority to move forward.
Oh. Yeah.
All right, so the homeless response the homeless and regulatory landscape And the funding realities that we just described only define the problem space that we're working in. So the city, in turn, has created a homeless response system. And in this structure, it helps to address those realities which were designed to bring together outreach, shelter, housing, and services into a coordinated system rather than a collection of isolated efforts. And so here to speak, I am introducing Mr. Damian Fonseca, who is our Homeless Solutions Coordinator, who will elaborate on the city's homeless response system.
Thank you, Cassandra. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of council, members of the audience. Just to jump right back into it. So the slide in front of you outlines the City of San Bernardino's homeless response system. The city has identified key areas of need and responded to strategically implementing and investing resources to address the immediate needs of individuals and families experiencing homelessness. These efforts focus on 4 key areas of support: prevention, outreach, shelter, and housing resources. So let's begin with prevention. Prevention services provided through the Salvation Army are designed to help stop individuals falling into homelessness. Rather than responding to housing that has already been lost, prevention focuses on identifying risks earlier, providing targeted support to help individuals and families remain housed. These supportive services include short-term financial assistance, rent assistance, utility support, connections to affordable housing, and employment resources. They also include legal assistance to help prevent evictions, referrals to social services to address underlying challenges, including health and family-related issues. Prevention is a critical component of our system, and it helps residents maintain stability, reduce strain on emergency response systems, and is more cost-effective than addressing homelessness after it occurs. Now, we look at outreach. For individuals who are currently experiencing homelessness, the city uses a coordinated approach to combine outreach, supportive services, and shelter. Outreach is provided by partners including Salvation Army, the City of San Bernardino Street Outreach Team through ERF, the Peace Team, which is connected to the San Bernardino Police Department, and our collaborative support from the Family Assistance Program serving the transitional aged youth. These teams engage individuals where they are, connect them to services, and help guide them towards shelter and housing options. The city does partner with some emergency shelters for short-term services that are provided through Salvation Army, Lutheran Social Services, and the city's motel voucher program. These programs provide immediate safety and stability. Once individuals are stabilized, the focus shifts to housing solutions, such as rapid rehousing. Housing services are delivered by our partners such as Salvation Army, the Benjamin E. Jones Community Resource Center, Family Service Association of Redlands, and through interim housing programs operated by VARP. These programs help people move quickly into housing while providing short-term supportive services. Overall, this system is designed to use resources efficiently, strengthen partnerships, and prioritize housing-focused outcomes, and improve long-term stability for individuals and the broader community.
So we're going to actually go into a deeper dive now. As we begin to talk about programs and services, we're going to talk about outcomes, we're going to talk about funding that's been utilized and how much remains. Before we can actually connect someone to shelter or housing or supportive services, there has to be a connection. And for us, that connection is outreach. Outreach is like the front door to assisting individuals, particularly those who are not looking for help, to help get them off the street. And so now we have Mr. Adi Estrada, who's our homeless outreach coordinator, and he's going to walk us through the outreach services, our contracts, funding that we've allocated, and talk about some outcomes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, members of the audience. In this presentation, I'm going to cover 3 main points: the Salvation Army Street Outreach, the Encampment Resolution Fund, ERF, Street Outreach Team, and Interim Shelter Program. The Salvation Army Street Outreach was created of a homeless outreach team as one of the comprehensive responses taken by the Mayor and City Council following its declaration of a homeless state of emergency in February of 2023. San Bernardino has partnered with the Salvation Army to provide a full-time team to work with the city's housing and homeless staff 5 days a week. The city has received a one-time funding for outreach-related activities. The Salvation Army received $680,000 from ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, funding to conduct outreach services. This funding was reallocated after the city ended its contract with Hope the Mission. The Salvation Army conducts outreach throughout the city, supports encampment cleanups, provides street-level case management, coordinates rapid rehousing, and facilitates shelter placements for families with children, as well as referring them to the recovery program. Some challenges that the Salvation Army has experienced, like many other programs, are exposure to substances, which have resulted in staff overdosing due to exposure to such substances. In addition to working in areas where gang activity occurs, drug sales are prevalent, and high-risk locations are present. Staff are committed to providing client-centered services. Another challenge is that 3 staff members from the Salvation Army conduct outreach for the entire city, which limits their response time and ability to meet the expectations of residents and others in addressing homelessness. The city has established a homeless help email and referral line, which can be used by individuals who are requesting help for themselves. The email is homelesshelp@sbcity.org, and the referral line is 909-936-3478. Both are managed by the Salvation Army. And I'll be speaking about the street outreach team, which is the ERF initiative. The city's outreach efforts focus on direct, consistent engagement with individuals experiencing homelessness. The team conducts proactive visits to high-need areas along the Waterman 5.2 corridor and works with individuals to build trust, identify their needs, and connect them to emergency shelter, healthcare, behavioral health support, benefits assistance, transportation, housing navigation, and rapid rehousing opportunities. The street outreach team specifically targets Waterman Avenue, where approximately 200 individuals live in encampments. Outreach is person-centered and trauma-informed, meaning individuals are treated with dignity and respect, and services are offered without enforcement as a primary approach. Outreach teams work closely with city departments, county partners, probation, San Bernardino Police Department, and service providers to ensure a coordinated response, particularly during encampment engagements and cleanup activities. Our priority is to ensure that housing opportunities are prioritized for residents throughout San Bernardino. Outcomes of outreach include increased connections to shelter and services, improved follow-up, and better data tracking, which helps the city target resources more effectively and support longer-term housing solutions. The city's ERF outreach team was funded with $1.4 million for 3 years. These funds fund 1 program coordinator, 3 full-time outreach specialists, 1 part-time outreach specialist, and the acquisition of 2 dedicated outreach vehicles. This is a one-time funding, which will sunset in 2028. Thank you.
We're going to share with you some of the outcomes and impacts regarding outreach and engagement. And we have with us Ms. Gabby Leon, who is our Homeless Solutions Manager. And I want to point something out, and Gabby can elaborate on it a little bit more. I mentioned how 50% or nearly 50% of our unhoused population is chronically homeless, and how that's probably the most difficult group to engage with. And so when you see numbers where our outreach team has 4,434 engagements, but yet you see, well, less than 2,000 are actually receiving services. There's a reason for that. This takes time. So I'll let Gabby go ahead and elaborate further.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and members of council and the public. As Cassandra mentioned, there has been key outcomes throughout outreach related activities. Homeless Services is relatively a new program for the city under the Housing Division. Funding for outreach began in 2023. Outreach is targeted, focused on meaningful engagements, and as you may be aware, it can take anywhere between 70 to 40 attempts. and that is coming just from one outreach specialist. So when we see staff turnover, it starts all over again. And those attempts can result in meaningful outcomes. So contact with individuals experiencing homelessness is always intentional and ongoing. Focus on connecting individuals with mental health or substance abuse treatment, as stated before, are two of the biggest concerns for individuals who are literally homeless. The Salvation Army focuses on conducting outreach throughout the city, and the ERF team in the 5.2 square miles along Waterman. The ERF team supports citywide efforts, including helping the county outreach efforts. Some outcomes include engagement of over 4,000 individuals, formal enrollment in case management of 1,500 individuals, close to 2,000 individuals accepted services, referrals to treatment and to shelter were accepted by over 1,000 individuals. 172 persons received rapid rehousing services, 19 were referred to interim housing, and 46 households were reunified with family. I'll turn it again back to Cassandra to go over hygiene and support.
So in addition to outreach and engagement, the city's homeless response has to address public health and safety, which includes the need for hygiene and support services. And the city meets this need by partnering with Community Action Partnership. We've been connected with them since 2024, all through up until currently. The city has allocated $450,000 in ARPA funds to assist with this hygiene and support. And the Community Action Partnership has utilized all but $50,000. So we're going to amend their contract so that they can extend the remaining $50,000 and continue services. This is something that actually has been very favorable This is something that's actually been very favorable in the community. As it stands right now, Community Action Partnership ensures that it has a 2-man staff that always provides sanitation in between each use of its 28-foot mobile unit that contains 3 full restrooms and also 2 washers, 2 dryers. And Community Action Partnership does a great job by providing the hygiene kits, the laundry kits, and when available, they provide new clothing that's donated from major retailers like Amazon and Target. Altogether, the Community Action Partnership, it attends several nonprofit locations, and that's so it can hook up to a water system. For a moment, the city actually tried to look at sites where maybe they could utilize a water hookup system. We were even talking about the parks, but it completely defeated the purpose of the city trying to clean up the parks and things of that nature. So it's just easier to allow them to continue to work with their local nonprofits. But for the locations, they visit the sites twice a week. And so far, they've helped 249 individuals. This is something that the nonprofits appreciate, as well as our unhoused community who don't always have immediate access to a shower or laundry services. And now we're going to slide over into how we address encampments. And so with that, I would like to give this back to Gabby. She's going to explain how the city addresses encampments as well as our CRM system so that whether it's council or members in the community will know how to make a report and how to follow up on the report.
Thank you, Cassandra. The city addresses encampments through a coordinated, humane, and legally compliant process focused on health, safety, and service connection, not enforcement alone. Encampments are identified through service requests, outreach observations, and safety referrals, and each location is assessed for public health and environmental concerns. Outreach always comes first. The outreach teams engage individuals in advance of any cleanup, offering shelter, housing referrals, case management, and transportation. These efforts are documented. When a cleanup is necessary, the city provides advance notice whenever feasible and coordinates across departments, including Housing and Homeless Services, Public Works, and Code Enforcement, with law enforcement only present for safety support. On the day of the cleanup, outreach staff are on site to continue engagement, offer services, and help individuals with belongings, while crews address hazardous waste and sanitation issues. After cleanups, outreach teams return to the area to continue follow-up. and connected individuals to longer-term solutions if they remain at the encampment or they've refused any other type of support during the encampment cleanup. This coordinated approach ensures the city balances compassion, public health, legal requirements, and community safety while continuing to work towards permanent housing outcomes. And one of the systems that the city has in place is the CRM, or the Customer Relationship Management System, which we'll go into next. So as stated, the city utilizes Customer Relationship Management System, or CRM, to provide a centralized, transparent way for residents, businesses, and city departments to report homeless encampments and related concerns. Reports can be submitted online through the GoSB City app or by phone. Once a report is received, it is routed to Housing and Homeless Services and or to the police department, where staff assess the location and coordinate outreach efforts, service engagement, and when necessary, multi-departmental response. The system allows the city to track each request from intake through resolution. The CRM system improves accountability and outcomes by reducing duplicate efforts, prioritizing locations where health and safety concerns are, and ensuring outreach teams are deployed efficiently. It also provides data and reporting that the city can measure trends, response times, and service connections, supporting better planning and resource allocation. An example of effective use of this system would be if a person who is experiencing homelessness can be reported through the system. In addition to the existing homeless help email or homeless assistant hotline, which is meant for homeless persons, residents and businesses are encouraged to utilize the CRM system to address their concerns in a coordinated manner rather than reacting to individual issues or problems. Of course, staff will address immediate needs, but again, to have a coordinated response, we must use and promote existing structures.
Stay. Okay, so the city's approach to encampments balances services, coordination, and enforcement. And the police department is a key partner in this work, supporting both public safety, outreach, and community engagement. And so with this, we have Lieutenant Luna, who's going to share with us more information regarding the police department's peace team and their plans to create a street medicine program.
Good afternoon, everyone. The chief of police identified a need and shift in its approach to outreach and enforcement due to increasing community needs. As a result, Operation New Hope was implemented and proved highly successful in addressing quality of life issues while connecting individuals to resources in the downtown area. Due to that success, the program expanded, evolving to what is now the Peace Team. The Peace Team, which stands for Proactive Enforcement and Community Engagement Team, focuses on enforcement efforts, safety, and community support. With that, they identify proactive patrols addressing potential issues that could escalate, respond to concerns from residents, businesses, property owners regarding unauthorized use of private property. Community outreach, working directly with individuals experiencing homelessness, engaging with individuals in public right-of-way, such as streets, sidewalks, parks, and other public areas, ensuring safety and accessibility in compliance with local ordinances. Partnership work, they work collaboratively with other city entities such as Public Works and the community outreach team, nonprofit, and service providers, bridging the gaps between traditional policing and social service response. Due to the team's success, the capacity has grown in response to the city's ongoing needs, allowing for more comprehensive outreach, enforcement, coordination, and long-term solutions. You can go to the next slide, please. Some of the Peace Team's accomplishments, again, these aren't standalone accomplishments with just the Peace Team. This is in coordination with the city outreach teams and Public Works. They have been able to address over 1,390 CRMs in 2025. They've removed over 558,000 pounds of trash and hazardous materials from public spaces and offered resources to over 1,000 individuals, and approximately 564 of those individuals accepting resources, and offering 330 housing referrals made by the Peace Team with the support of the City Outreach Team. Some positive things to come. The department has been notified that our application for the Prop 47 grant has been selected for funding. This funding will provide additional resources to support the city's outreach efforts, such as providing mental health, substance use disorder treatment, case management, conflict mediation, reentry supports, workforce readiness for training, and street medicine.
I kind of want to piggyback just a step. When we were talking about coordination efforts, yes, our city departments, mainly Public Works, Police Department, Housing and Homeless Division, we collaborate well together. But there's a couple of entities that I need to mention that has helped our services be that much more fruitful, and that's working alongside Caltrans and working alongside the county. There are certain areas or jurisdictions that are not covered by the city where we just have no control or say over. So within this last year, there has been increased communication and collaboration with Caltrans to assist in those cleanup efforts, as well as like the county dealing with the county flood control area. We have biweekly meetings with the county. We meet with Caltrans as necessary, and it's just been very helpful to kind of push that button forward where we can begin to make more of an effort versus the city just going at it alone. So it's not just us, it's not just our departments, it's also external departments as well. And so that's something that's been improved as of last year. I just wanted to point that out. Now, outside of that, we have outreach, we have engagement, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really mean anything if you don't have a place to send people. And if you were not aware, it wasn't that long ago that on any given night you can call a shelter and there was no room available at the inn. There was no beds available. And so the city ended up creating its own motel voucher program. And I'm here to tell you that using motels was not our first choice. Staff did an extensive search. We looked at acquiring private buildings that we could lease. We looked at city-owned buildings. We looked at vacant lands where we can put up modular structures. We ran through the gamut, and at the end of the day, in terms of timeline and in terms of cost procurement, the motels was the best option to go, and that's why we're utilizing them until we get our navigation center complete. But with that said, I'm going to toss it back over to Gabby, who will give you an update and information on outcomes regarding the city's motel voucher program, which acts as the interim shelter for the city.
Thank you again, Cassandra. So the purpose of the motel voucher program is a short-term solution consisting of 200 beds with on-call services within 2 motels. The city currently utilizes to place individuals temporarily as its emergency shelter. This program provides immediate short-term shelter for individuals and families experiencing literal homelessness, particularly those with urgent health, safety, and vulnerability needs. This program serves as a bridge from unsheltered homelessness to more stable housing options, allowing individuals to come indoors while outreach and case management teams work to connect them to longer-term solutions. Motel vouchers are prioritized for high-needs population, including seniors, individuals with disabilities, medically vulnerable individuals, and those exiting encampments where health or safety are present. While individuals are in emergency shelter, the city and its partners provide case management, housing navigation, and service coordination, focusing on access to permanent housing or long-term shelter. The program allows the city to respond quickly and flexibly to urgent situations, supports public health and safety goals, and reduces the impacts of unsheltered homelessness while permanent housing solutions are pursued. While there are services that are delivered on-site, there's some gaps that remain, and staff are working on addressing those. Some of the gaps that will be addressed include creating a meal program that staff will bring back to council. Currently, staff is working on the release of an RFP, and a vendor will be selected to deliver meals to those staying at the motel. This will help address food insecurities. With poor oversight, individuals staying at the motel are asked to leave many times earlier than when their voucher would expire. Behavior challenges are the biggest reason, and not having staff at the motel does impact that mediation between the client and the motel management. Having staff at the motel can help mediate, de-escalate, and ensure individuals are actually connected with service providers, that they attend their appointments, and again, mediate between the client and the motel management. But at the same time, ensuring that they're working on their individual service goals will allow folks to be more successful with mid to long-term goals. Currently, when someone is placed at a motel, they receive a 7-night stay. But if a client is actively working on their case plan or their housing plan, case coordination happens both with the city and subrecipients or other community partners, where they're able to demonstrate that the client is working on those goals, and extensions can be provided. We've had clients stay at the motel up to 90 days. So it's not just 7 days, but it is a lifeline, and it is a place where people can actually go to job interviews or work again on their individual plans. Next slide. So the motel voucher program or emergency shelter is funded by one-time funding. This program has no impact on general funds as state and federal funds allow the city to have this project in place. Funds are tied to strict obligations and expenditure deadlines. These funds were approved by the city, by the mayor and city council, and are also approved by state and federal government. The Housing and Homeless Services Division continually seeks potential funding to continue providing funding to projects that address homelessness. Next slide. So some outcomes for the motel voucher program. These graphs represent motel voucher utilization from 2023 to December 31st, 2025. During this period, 1,500 motel vouchers were issued, benefiting about 2,000 individuals. 1,974 adult clients accepted services, while many clients placed at motels ultimately refused or declined services after placement, and many more had an early exit. All were offered case management and referrals to larger systems of care, including public benefits as well as employment services. The number of this graph combines motel voucher funding by the Homeless Services Division and the Peace Team. For individuals who are actively working on their goals as stated before, there is a path towards housing or long-term shelter. Their stay at the motel can be extended. As also mentioned, weekly check-ins with the client helps staff justify extensions. Clients are assigned weekly tasks to complete, such as applying for benefits or seeking employment. If a person is evicted from one motel, staff will often try and use a different contracted motel if the person promises to comply with the rules. At the same time, this may be challenging, but staff will make this attempt. Ultimately, motels are independently owned and can refuse this request. Finally, we are only using 2 motels. We no longer use the location off of Ostrom's Way, but despite this loss, the city continues to have access to 200 beds.
State. I really want to take a step back so that council can understand why we intend to bring an item up to increase services for a motel voucher program. In regards to meals, and you don't have to be homeless to recognize this, it's hard to concentrate or follow directions when you're hungry. You can sit here and write it out for me and tell me to do A, B, C, D, but if my natural urges is I'm starving right now and I'm willing to do anything to put some food in my belly, and if we can minimize that by providing a basic meal, 1 or 2, that would help greatly. We do have assistance from time to time from local nonprofits. They volunteer, and that's great. But when there's no funds attached, when there's no real bite behind that bark where you can hold somebody accountable, well, then the service is not consistent. And so if the city develops its own program, we can guarantee at least this basic coverage. So that's what that's about. Providing individuals with meals, so 1, they can focus, 2, be less likely to do something foolish just out of hunger. So that's what that's about. Outside of that, we also have another interim program with VARP. This was created to expand our motel voucher program. We have Mr. Adi who will explain VARP. And this service was created as part of the Encampment Resolution Fund team. It does include meals, it does include services, and Adi will go into more detail.
Thank you, Cassandra. The city has received one-time funding of $991,000 for interim housing and $100,000 for prevention and diversion. The city has partnered with VARP to provide 18 interim housing beds. This program, funded through the city's Encampment Resolution Fund, the ERF grant, offers up to 6 months of housing, case management, and supportive services. It represents a critical bridge for residents who need stability and support before moving into long-term housing. Clients will receive ongoing case management, regular check-ins with participants to monitor progress, resolve issues, and provide supportive counseling, stabilization planning, development of individualized service and self-sufficiency plans with measurable goals, employment and income support, referrals to workforce development, benefits enrollment, and financial literacy resources to promote long-term independence. The following is key challenge associated with homelessness. Many of the individuals experiencing homelessness suffer from mental illnesses or substance abuse disorders, making it challenging for them to access stable housing and support.
So interim shelter, which includes the motel voucher programs, is designed to provide immediate stability. The next step, however, is helping people move out of shelter and into permanent housing. And so this transition is supported through the city's Rapid Rehousing Program, which focuses on short-term assistance and housing placement. Now, the city's not trying to set anybody up for failure, so individuals connected to the city's Rapid Rehousing Program does have to have some level of income. But with that said, Damien will go ahead and explain how the city's Rapid Rehousing Program works and the vendors that we have providing this service.
Thank you, Cassandra. As mentioned earlier, one of the big areas of support that the city of San Bernardino provide is rapid rehousing. So rapid rehousing assists households in securing permanent housing as quickly as possible. Participants receive comprehensive support, including housing navigation, landlord engagement, utility assistance, movement support, and short-term financial assistance. Since 2024, the program has served 172 individuals. Services are provided by 3 contracted partners, the Salvation Army, Benjamin E. Jones Community Resource Center, and the Family Service Association of Redlands. While current demand exceeds program capacity due to staffing limitations and challenging housing market conditions, staff continue to work closely with service providers and landlords to ensure positive and sustainable outcomes. Although not reflected on the slide, the following updates are regarding homeless prevention funds and rapid rehousing funds. Starting with Benjamin E. Jones Community Resource Center. Benjamin E. Jones Community Resource Center was awarded $1,300,000 and roughly $1,400,000 through the Encampment Resolution Fund. To date, they had utilized $200,000 and have a remaining balance of $1,183,567.20. The Salvation Army was awarded $600,000 through the General Fund. To date, total that has been utilized is $48,141.90. Remaining balance is $551,858.10. Also awarded was the Family Service Association of Redlands. They were awarded $55,987 through ESG funding. Overall, all 3 subcontractors continue to actively deliver rapid rehousing services. Salvation Army was also awarded $129,000 in fiscal year 24-25 through ESG funding. These funds supported 31 individuals, enabling them to remain stably housed. Salvation Army was also awarded an additional $14,000 in the fiscal year of 25-26 through ESG funds. Next slide. As shown on this slide, the city has made 3 targeted investments in rapid rehousing. The largest investment is $600,000 from the city's general fund, which has resulted in 52 households being housed, impacting a total of 114 individuals. Additionally, ESG-funded rapid rehousing supported 16 households between 2024 and 25, benefiting 43 individuals. Finally, ERF-funded rapid rehousing, which is the city's newest rapid rehousing project, is currently assisting 14 households.
Thank you.
Next, I'm going to go into building capacity and systems. So as you've heard, there's a lot that the Housing and Homeless Division is doing, and we are data rich, information poor, and we want to remove that. We want you all to have information the moment that you need it for, for reports, to justify programs, to talk to you about challenges and how all of these services that we are offering in the city all come together. So the city is launching a pilot software called Deep Blue. Deep Blue is designed to build internal capacity and strengthen the city's response to homelessness. Deep Blue is a collaborative initiative between the Housing and Homeless Division and the Police Department, allowing multiple departments to operate from a single shared platform. A key benefit of the system is city ownership and proprietary control. The city retains governance over the system and the data, ensuring transparency, security, and appropriate use. The platform enables real-time operational tracking, including outreach activities, service delivery, service refusals, and encampment-related activities. This real-time visibility provides staff and council with a clear daily snapshot of the city's efforts across department. Deep Blue improves coordination and response to homelessness-related requests by allowing the city to track encampments, outreach activities, and service connections in one centralized system. This helps staff respond more efficiently, reduce duplicative efforts, and ensure issues are followed through from report to resolution. The platform is customizable and scalable. It's HIPAA compliant and equipped with encryption and cybersecurity. The software strengthens transparency and data-driven decision-making by providing real-time reports on trends, response times, and outcomes. This enables the city to more effectively allocate resources, assess program effectiveness, and demonstrate accountability to the public, the council, and funding partners. A better example of that is if the city mayor or council want to know beyond basic demographics, Deep Blue can provide a report indicating caller information, the type of care that they receive, incident records from outreach workers, a shelter bed availability, and case volume by subrecipients with immediate or live outcomes. The software will be able to be shared, or access to the software will be able to share with all partners across the city, where they can report the beds that they have available at no cost to them. Agencies can report service utilization, so we will make this available to our city partners or other community partners, so we could better manage the resources that we have available beyond what the city funds.
So I want to highlight something that Gabby stated. The city will have proprietary control. So even though this is a pilot project, let's just say for whatever reason the city decides to go a separate way with another agency, all of the data that's been collected, that's ours to keep. We don't have to start fresh with a new organization or a new vendor if we choose to. I want to slide now over into shelter bed capacity. I think most of you might recall that in 2022, 2023, we on average were aware of about 422 shelter beds. I thought that was pretty good at the time because the city before we had no way of knowing anything, but I'm happy to say that we have now identified 930 shelter beds in our city. So basically, from 2022 to 2025, there has been a 120% increase in shelter beds. Specifically, in 2024, we added 236 new shelter beds, and in 2025, we added an additional 272 shelter beds. This next slide actually shows the increase. It's not the most accurate. I showed the increase from 24 to 25, but I didn't show the increase from 23 to 24. Bottom line is we have 930 beds, and although we don't have the same match of shelter beds as we do for the homeless count in our 2025 point-in-time count numbers, it does show that the city is closing a gap. And more importantly, I want to stress that based off of this increase, it is not necessary nor is it advisable for the city to look at having an influx of additional shelters. A couple more shelters, yeah, that could benefit us, but really our focus should be more balanced, and it should be prioritized on coordination, quality of operations, and long-term outcomes. So basically, we need to be talking to organizations about expanding transitional and permanent housing.
Can you just say that one more time? I just want to make sure I heard that.
What I'm saying is that there is no need for the city to continue to look at an influx of emergency shelters. I'm not even counting the SB Hope campus that will come online December of this year, which will be another 200 beds. So a couple more shelters, that would be great. But an influx, no. We need to focus on transitional and permanent housing. That's the balanced approach. But nevertheless, applaud to the city because in 2 years, you gained 508 shelter beds. So the nonprofits out there, they're listening, they're working alongside, they're helping with the increase. This is all good. So I just wanted to point that out. Now we're going to slide over into navigation centers and expanding shelter capacity. That is one part of the city's homelessness response. But the navigation center, it plays a critical role in what happens next by offering centralized, coordinated places of service, assessments, and pathways forward. So in partnership with Lutheran Social Services and Dignity Moves, the city was awarded $35 million in Home Key 3.0. And as a result, the city has helped to develop a 140-bed non-congregate navigation center for men that includes an on-site medical clinic, specifically an FQHC, which is a federally qualified health center that is operational right now as we speak, and a host of wraparound supportive services. Now, I talked to the developer 2 days ago, and the certificate of occupancy is set for February 23rd, which is also when the interim housing units are expected to be completed. HCD is aware and has granted this extension, and so we're in good standing. Now, this is a conceptual overview. I am happy to say that that top picture is also a conceptual, but that bottom is an actual picture. It's actually 2 weeks old, so it looks better now than it did then. This is when we had the heavy rain, so the mud flood carried over into the street. But as you can see, the actual picture is very close to the rendering. We just missing the the vegetation and the overhangs and just some of the intricate structures that kind of put the additional details, but it's very, very close. And then this photo is a little bit older, but here you can see on the background where the 140 interim housing units are. And when I say interim housing units, I mean that an individual will be able to go to a room, close the door behind them, and that's his private space. That's his bed, that's his storage, his desk, his shelving. There are communal restrooms, there's a communal kitchen, and then there's communal lounging space. But if a person has an appointment, if they have to go on a job interview or go to work, they don't have to worry about packing up their belongings. They don't have to worry about which room they're going to be assigned tonight. This is their space as long as they're connected to Lutheran Social Services, receiving the benefits from this men's navigation center. So when this is all said and done, this is definitely something that's going to be a benefit to the community. It's definitely a pride of the city. And just to give you some dates so that you can be familiar, we had a groundbreaking on this project on April 15th, 2024. I already told you that the housing unit completion and the certificate of occupancy will be provided on February 23rd. We intend to comply with the dates that we provided to HCD, in which this facility anticipates a 90% occupancy end of March. And then the organization Lutheran is hoping to have a grand opening sometime between mid to late March. So just be prepared for that. Yeah, that's it. So it's coming along nicely. It's about 90 to 95% complete. That's one navigation center. The city has a second navigation center, and the reason for this is because the scale of homelessness in the city, it does require additional capacity. One navigation center was not going to be enough. Now, we're grateful for the Lutheran Project because homeless men in our city outnumber homeless women 2 to 1. So that men's navigation center is something that's definitely needed. But the city's SB Hope Campus Navigation Center will provide services to unhoused men and women, being low barrier. It's going to help stabilize the unhoused population. It'll provide wraparound supportive services, and the city will have control over prioritizing its unhoused population. We have already selected our lead operator, which is Helping Hearts. They are currently the lead operator for the City of Riverside's Hewlin campus. 15 years experience in the state of California. Specifically, they are going to provide services that will accommodate both a mix of congregate and non-congregate units, with wraparound services that include case management, housing navigation, substance abuse disorder counseling, mental health services, recuperative care, and short-term post-hospitalization, job training and placement, documentation readiness, also benefits assistance, and the campus will be designed for individuals with pets, so it will be pet-friendly. Just so you know, the city, when the SBO campus is open, our city staff, our city's outreach staff and Peace Team, I'm not sure if it's Peace Team or Quality of Life Team, but one of those teams in the police department, they're going to be able to provide homeless certification, which means that as our outreach teams come across individuals who are on our streets and they've been vetted, they have a nexus to the city, they will not have to wait 1 or 2 weeks to gain access. If you are familiar with the county's coordinated entry system, there are some bugs that they are still working out. You literally can be on the phone anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. And then once you do connect to a worker, it could take easily a week to 2 weeks before someone has to come out and physically verify that you're homeless. And if you know anything about our homeless population, they're nomadic. So you might have somebody who's behind Stater Brothers today, but next week they're in the flood control system. If you miss your appointment, you do not keep your place in line. You have to get back in queue and start from the beginning. So we're going to avoid all of that because how it works now with our team, they're prepared and they are currently providing homeless certification on the spot, and the same will apply when our navigation center comes online. So I wanted to share that. And what I like to do right now is to, before I start talking about operations, I want to kind of dive a little bit into the development itself. I would like, and I'm going to slaughter her name. I'm going to bring up Miss Gina Wazorek with Creed. And Gina's actually the managing director with Creed, and Creed handles the day-to-day functions for the development and construction of our management of our project SB Hope Campus, and she'll give a further overview.
Great. Thank you. Just wanted to start by saying thank you to Mayor, to the council members, and to members of the public for their time and engagement as we work collaboratively with the city staff and to advance this important project addressing homelessness in the community. As Cassandra's already mentioned, the campus is a navigation center designed to provide interim shelter, services, and pathways to stability. And I'll skip over that brief overview of just the site plan that's been seen previously in previous meetings. We just want to focus on a few of the design features of the SB Hope Campus Center. We'll have acrylic facade cladding. This is durable, weather-resistant, repairable, and cost-effective over the building life cycle. The color palette's going to be warm, neutral tones to promote calm and stability for residents. The amenities will feature commercial kitchens supporting 3 daily meals for residents, flexible indoor spaces for services and programming. As Cassandra mentioned, there'll also be a lot of pet-friendly features, kennels, wash station, and dog run to reduce barriers to accessing services. We also have many outdoor spaces that are landscaped, supervised areas that support community and safety. These features are selected to balance dignity, durability, and long-term value for the city. Before I walk through the slide, I'd like to make a quick clarification. The heading labeled current statuses should refer to the previous project status and delivery approach prior to the city's direction to shift to volumetric modular construction. Apologize for the confusion. Just wanted to note that for clarity. With that clarification, I'll walk through the project history and how we arrived at the current delivery approach reflected in the remainder of the slide. Initial procurement was in early 24. The city issued an RFQ under traditional design build model, assuming a stick build construction approach. This was a previous delivery model as referenced on the top of this slide. There was a strategic shift to volumetric modular construction that the city made the strategic pivot. This was made in order to reduce overall cost, shorten the construction duration, and improve schedule certainty. Following that decision, the city issued separate procurements for the modular manufacturer, who also is responsible for the design, the development manager, Crane, and the general contractor. The sequencing was intentional and designed to reduce bidder risk and improve pricing accuracy. So later on, the general contractor RFP was pulled so that we could develop more advanced plans. And that RFP for the general contractor was released in November and will be awarded this month. Schedule impacts were driven by change in city management, transfer of the project to Public Works, and a strategic shift in the delivery method. And in April of 25, the site plan was locked, enabling downstream work to proceed. Current status is interior architectural layouts are being completed by the modular manufacturer. Civil engineering plans have been reviewed by multiple departments and are nearing final submittal. Weekly coordination meetings are being held with various stakeholders on the project. The coordination underway now is specifically intended to prevent construction phase delays and cost escalation. I won't get too much into this slide as I know Trina's already referenced this, but as Trina Perez referenced earlier, a regional approach is being considered, which could lead to $11 million allocation towards the Navigation Center. With that, we estimate a $2 million gap that is subject to change upon the general contractor's award. So in summary, the city, with support from us, made a shift in the delivery strategy to improve cost control and schedule certainty. The work now underway is focused on coordination, transparency, and positioning the project for successful construction and operation. Thank you.
Okay, so hold on. I want to make sure council fully understands there's no confusion, because you said that we only have about $2 million funding gap, but in reality we have how much of a funding gap?
Without the $11 million.
Yeah.
Closer to what Trina referenced earlier.
Can you just go over that again to make sure that they clearly understand? We don't have a $2 million funding gap. We have an $11 million funding gap.
Right, and that's with the pending of the county funds. So that's where we're at now. Now that is subject to change when the contract is awarded.
Okay, thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
Okay, so Gina had mentioned that there's some options on the table. I'm getting ready to get into that next for council to consider. But right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to outline the city moving forward solo with SB Hope Campus. And when I talk about numbers, I'm talking about numbers we, the city, are going to carry. I want you to understand. I want you to fully understand what it will cost us if we continue to move forward as a solo operator, and then it's also look at options should we join a regional approach. And then there's even another option should we decide to sell this project to the county, because that's also on the table. So I'm getting into all of that, but right now I'm just going to focus on us moving forward as the owner and main oversight of SB Hope Campus. So I want to start off by explaining that first year operating expense is more expensive because of startup costs. So the breakdown here is that the lead operator has identified roughly $1,644,495 in startup costs. That's going to cover furnishings, staffing, transportation, security, any and everything that we need to get this project up and running. And now the city's, so we have to cover that. And then the city's annual operating expense is $300,000. That's whether it's phase 1 or phase 2. Now, Helping Hearts has already entered into an agreement with the city confirming that it will only charge us $300,000 annually to operate phase 1 or 2, but that is based entirely on their ability to leverage Medi-Cal and CalAIM reimbursements. I'm going to break this down real slow, so you guys be patient with me so I'll make sure I do not skip a beat. But on the best case scenario, let's say it's just $300,000. Now, with that first year, the city is also going to add an additional $450,580. The operator did not ask for this. The city wanted to add these reserves, these contingency funds, because we know that things happen and there could be hiccups, and we want to make sure that the first year out there, everything is smooth. We know eyes are on us, and we just want to make sure that there's no problems. And as a result, that gets us to the $2,395,075. Now, if year 2 comes and we're still operating as phase 1 with 100 beds, then our annual expenses could be anywhere from $300,000 minimal if all CalAIM and Medi-Cal revenues are realized, or a maximum of $1,638,429. I just want to explain that. And if we go to a phase 2 where there's 200 beds, we could pay upwards of $3.3 million. But that first year is more because of the startup expenses. Now, in terms of the city's annual operating costs, and we're talking about exposures, you may ask, how did the operator come up with the minimum and the maximum amount? Well, first of all, during the vetting process, the city staff asked Helping Hearts to please show us their invoices. We wanted to see for ourselves, what type of revenue are you bringing in? What are you charging HMOs, whatever the HMOs or Medi-Cal? And they showed us, and it's a significant amount of revenue. And because of this healthcare model, they're able to provide this cost sharing for the city where it's not so expensive. And it's because of the healthcare model. And then outside of that, I'll lose my place. Outside of that, the city has identified how we would cover operating expenses, which would be from general funds. On October 4th, 2023, council approved $2 million that can go towards homeless-related services and activities, which can also include covering operation expenses for SB Hope Campus. So we have general funds, and then we have PLHA funds to make up the difference. Now, I'm going to say something because I want you to take note of it, so when we start talking about other options, you will remember this point. PLHA, which is Planned Local Housing Allocation, it can be used to cover operating expenses, but it is best suited for capital. It is really not suited for long-term operations, and the reason is because there's volatility in this revenue. PLHA funds are derived from real estate activity. So if there is a market slowdown or if there is a crash, it will absolutely impact the city's PLHA allocation. It's designed to create and preserve housing, not to serve as a perpetual operating subsidy. And then using PLHA year after year for operations could undermine the city's ability to meet future housing production goals. So although PLHA is allowed, there are some cautions to it. And so you may ask, well, why are we using PLHA? Because outside of general funds, that was the only other funding source available. So it can be used, but I'm pointing out those cautions to be completely transparent. So as you're making your decision, you'll keep that in mind. The annual operating costs, that was determined because of the operator's 15 years experience. This is what they do. And so basically, they gave us this cost allocation because they made some assumptions. One of the assumptions is that because the city has such a high number of homeless individuals, they feel very confident that we will obtain 90% utilization of the SB Hope campus, whether phase 1 or phase 2. They don't feel like we're going to have any problems filling that bed. So you have a 90% utilization, And of that 90%, they anticipate roughly 85% of individuals will qualify for Medi-Cal. And so as a result of that, you're looking at roughly 95% of ongoing operation costs that will be offset through Medi-Cal and CalAIM reimbursements. And that's how we get our high-low. If the full reimbursements are not realized, we will go to the high mark. But if there is the true 90% utilization with 85% connected to Medi-Cal, that's how we get the low point. So anywhere from the 300,000 to the maximum amount, depending on if it's 100 beds or 200 beds. I know there's concerns regarding CalAIM, and so I definitely want to dive into this because your concerns are warranted. Did I skip something? Hold on. Oh, why the city's cost is so low. I'm sorry. So the city's cost is so low because of the revenue. And as you can see here, there's a significant amount of revenue coming in, whether we're phase 1 or we're phase 2. I know this revenue might seem like a lot of money, but in truth, this model is a cost saver. It saves millions to the state every single year, which is why they're in favor of CalAIM. So the state has found that it's cheaper to holistically treat a person for their needs, covering social services, covering housing, covering job placement. It's cheaper to do all that than to just deal with unhoused individuals being high utilizers of hospitals and emergency rooms. That back and forth, in and out, it costs into the billions. So for them to hand over these amounts in revenue so that we can provide a holistic approach is a major cost savings for the state. Give you an example, and let me use your mind too while I'm at it. So the CalAIM project, it was a 5-year pilot project. It's set to sunset. It's supposed to sunset December of this year. The state is already in the process of renewing CalAIM for another 5 years. The data that has been produced has shown that it's just worthwhile to continue with this program. CalAIM has had a 31.6% decrease in hospital utilization and emergency room visits. It also, in terms of recuperative care, has shown a 61.3% decrease in helping people to remain out of inpatient and long-term care facilities. So it's a major cost saver for the state. So with that said, yeah, CalAIM is going to be renewed for another 5 years. Now, we're not a fortune teller. I can't speak to what's going to happen 10 years or 20 years down the line, but for the immediate future, we're good. I do want to say something, though. Some of the funds that we have tied into our project, like HomeArt, these federal funds, have a 20-year covenant tied to that property. And I want you to keep that in mind as we talk about some other options, because right now the city has 100% exposure. There is no other entity out here. It's just us. And even on the worst case scenario, yes, we have the funding to cover it, but I can't say CalAIM is going to be around for 10 years, 15 years. So I just want you to keep that in mind. This next slide is talking about, I might have talked too much. Okay, you're talking about risk. So the federal government, as you're aware, July 2025, they passed a big, beautiful bill. We are already aware Medi-Cal cuts are in progress, and these cuts are going to take place over the next 10 years. With that said, CalAIM is going to be renewed, so we're good. But until that renewal is launched, the state, and I don't know how they did this, but a few years ago, they had the foresight to designate certain non-medical services, housing services, mental health, drug counseling, job training. They moved these funds into a category that's called in lieu of service. These funds cannot be touched by the federal government. When the CalAIM waiver sunsets in December, if the new CalAIM program has not been renewed, we have in lieu of service funds that will allow organizations like Helping Hearts to continue to bill for enhanced care management support services, the social services that are going to be offered at our navigation center that I've already mentioned. So we're good on that point. The wraparound supportive services. However, with that said, it's still prudent for the city to consider a diversified and shared funding approach. And as a result of that, I want to now move into the rationale for regional cost sharing. Although the state is in the process of renewing Cal Lame for another 5 years, again, we don't know what the future holds. Cal Lame has shown tremendous results. So right now I can't see the state eliminating it, but again, we're not fortune tellers. We do have a vulnerability because of the funding streams that are connected to this project. I mentioned Home Art with the 20-year covenant, but then there's CDBG, and that funding stream is tied in perpetuity. We do have the ability to go back to HUD and ask for an amendment or a change, but it's a process. So I just kind of wanted to make you aware of some of these funding sources and how they're tied to these properties. And so to make sure that the city does not have to completely deal with 100% exposure on its own, but yet still be able to retain the priority of beds, access to the facility, reduce our cost burden, it's prudent for us to consider a regional approach. So right now, what we did was we received the MOU agreement that the county has in place right now with the city of Fontana and that West End regional hub. And they gave us some numbers pertaining to the bed allocation and cost. We decided to model that because if we're trying to bring in local jurisdictions, we don't want to put ourselves in a position where, let's just say, for instance, Colton says, why should I join you? I can go to Fontana and pay less. And so our cost model just mirrors what the county has already outlined with the city of Fontana. This is all fluid. The city manager is going to ask for direction to move forward with negotiations. This can all change. So I'm just trying to show you a visual of how this could work out, how this could break down. But again, everything is fluid. So at the top, what you see is the estimated annual operating cost that's been provided by Helping Hearts for phase 1 or phase 2. And there is an error. That out-of-pocket expense should read $1,638,429. I was rushing. I don't know what happened. But the out-of-pocket expense represents the maximum cost exposure that's been outlined by the operator. So the Cal Lame and Medi-Cal reimbursements, it covers the majority of the cost. This is going to significantly reduce the remaining out-of-pocket expenses. The remaining amounts is going to represent the operational gap, and that's costs related to staffing, service gaps, and contingencies not fully reimbursed through Medi-Cal. And rather than the city absorb the entire gap, a regional investment model will allow partner cities to share those costs. So, for example, if the city of Redlands wanted to have 15 beds allocated each month, they would pay the city $425,000 to have access to 15 beds, which includes the full array of services that will be provided at our shelter. Now, we currently have an agreement with Helping Hearts, and our phase 1 outlines 100 beds. But again, this is fluid. We can always go back to the table. We weren't thinking about a regional approach when we first went into this agreement with Helping Hearts, but we can go back and, let's say, for example, increase phase 1 to 120 or 130 beds, whatever is going to be necessary to meet the needs of everybody. So my point is that the percentages can be adjusted. Ultimately, the city will more than likely have the lion's share. Right now, we put ourselves at 60%. That's probably where we're going to end up, but it is negotiable. We have the highest concentration, so more than likely we will have the highest bed percentage. But again, we can negotiate this. And I can tell you that the cities we have on the slide right now are the ones that have expressed an interest in partnering with us, and that's the city of Redlands, the city of Colton, and the city of Highland. The city of Loma Linda is also interested in discussions. They haven't been as vocal as the others, but they're still interested in discussion. So there's room at the table. So this just kind of gives you an example, but again, this can be adjusted. The efficiency to scale, it on average will cost roughly $196 per bed per night if we operate at a phase 1 level with 100 beds. If we're at full capacity, the cost decrease down to $146 per bed. And of course, if the campus operates at scale, it does become more cost effective. Actually, at phase 2 with 200 beds, this will reduce the city's bed cost, or whatever city, not just ours, but anybody's, it would reduce the bed cost by nearly $18,000 per year. And so getting at 90% capacity on a regional level absolutely will not be difficult if we have other cities involved. We're still using the dollar amount that's outlined by the operator. This is something that's very doable. And at the end of the day, it's not just about beds, it's also about the wraparound services and the connection to permanent housing. But again, this is fluid, it's just an example. This slide outlines how a regional cost-sharing partnership would work in practice. So for the most part, partner cities, they contribute a fixed annual amount, and in return, they receive guaranteed access to SB Hope Campus for the full range of Navigation Center services. Each partner will know exactly how much it needs to pay each year. There's no surprise invoicing. There's no variable billing. The costs are set through a formal agreement or an MOU. And then this structure allows the city to budget year to year with certainty. So I want to talk about how the bed model would work. So as it stands right now with SB Hope Campus, the city has given the operator permission to utilize up to 70 beds for recuperative care and short-term post-hospitalization, whether we're at 100 bed capacity or 200 bed capacity. And the reason for that was to offset some of the revenue that we talked about. It's going to be really important that as we move forward that we're clear in not trying to label the beds. So to be clear, if, I'm just use Redlands again, if Redlands needed 15 beds and 4 of their individuals actually required recuperative care or short-term post-hospitalization, but they got 15 beds and they got 15 beds. We're not dividing recuperative versus shelter beds. It's the bed allocation. However it's used, it's still that city's bed allocation. In truth, the homeless population in whatever city you look at is dealing with the high rate of individuals who have chronic and acute health conditions. So to be able to have access to people who meet that need, be it recuperative, be it short-term post-hospitalization, or be it shelter beds, is going to be a benefit. The allocation is the allocation. Whether it's one, the other, or both, is still that city's allocation. Okay, I don't think I can break that down any further, so let me go. All right, so the whole point of the regional approach is so that we could share the cost burden, we can reduce the city's vulnerability, and we can have it so that we can utilize a regional approach which is favorable to the county, which would be a benefit, which would be a mechanism to allow the county to assist us with that funding gap, because it's something that they mentioned that they're very much in favor of. That's one option, but the other option would also be to assume our SB Hope Campus, either through a sale, transfer, or a lease, where they literally would just take it over from us. And so it's only fair that you hear the options and the benefits to that as well. And so we're going to have Ms. Trina Perez share options for property transfer or sale.
Okay, so as you've seen, there's an array of services, programs that the city's running. There is the estimated funding gap for the construction of the Navigation Center. So in reaching out to the county to see if they would be interested, one of the items was, yes, they would be interested, but they do want it to be a regional approach. So also in that discussion, they stated they may be interested in purchasing the campus itself. So with all of the challenges, with the money spread so very thin, it is an option. But right now, we're just bringing it to you as very conceptual. These are very preliminary. If you decide that this is an approach you would like to take, if you prefer one of the options, we can come back with multiple options, with more detail, draft agreements, and what that structure would look like specifically. So the purpose to bring this forward is to get a feel from the mayor and council to see if this is the approach you would like to take. It also helps alleviate some of that ongoing cost. Not that we don't feel like we could cover the operational costs, but there is potential risk with the environment and the funding set the way it is right now. So again, just very preliminary. It's going to help reduce the ongoing cost. And then we still will structure the deal to make sure that the city still preserves its access to the beds and the facility itself, whether it be for our outreach teams or the PD's outreach team. So this slide still outlines some of our initial investments. This is taking into account the appraisal value, our current capital investment with the commitments made. Again, the GC contract is still pending, so that's an approximate. So these are very live numbers. One of the options was, and this is probably the preferred option, is to complete construction, then sell to the county. This would allow us to fulfill all the funding agreement requirements, make sure we can close out the grants. This gives us time to work with HUD and HCD to ensure that we're meeting all the funding requirements, all the obligations, and making sure we fulfill all of those requirements. The second option would be such like a nominal conveyance where we're leasing or selling to the county. They're coming in. Again, the key considerations here is that we have entered into some of these agreements. So that would be assignment of all the existing contracts. We'd have to work out the deal points of, change orders that come along during construction, who's in charge of the remaining completion, protection of the covenants, performance milestones, and of course, if they don't maintain the intended use that the property is intended to be at this moment. The third option was just for the city still to maybe retain the land, sell maybe the modulars, or they take over the use. And this one, it does give maybe an option to do a lease to the county. That way the city is generating some revenue and still has access to the facility itself and the beds. The considerations here, same thing. All of the contracts we have in place, all of the funding commitment that we have committed, making sure we can get through all these regulatory agreements. Any of these options are still challenging, but we can detail that out and bring it back to council at any time. And here, again, these would be some required provisions of any agreement that we enter into with the county. It would be a reservation of the shelter beds, and right now this is just a recommended, 25 to 35%. Again, this would be just a negotiation. This is just for the example. Still have 24-hour placement available to the city. Again, access to the units for the city's outreach teams and then the PD's teams. And of course, here I'm just stating again that the initial recommended option would be for the city to complete the project first, ensure we get through all the compliance, regulatory, and expenditure deadlines. Okay, again, here's the key takeaways, is that we get to complete, we would fulfill all the current funding regulations. Again, these aren't final recommendations. It's just to see which direction you would like to approach. We would come back with a detailed structure, outline the pros and cons, list out all of the compliance implications, timelines, estimated exposure for the city. And then again, it just helps alleviate that long-term cost for the city. Now, besides just the navigation center, the Housing and Homeless team is also working on affordable housing projects. So in addition to the shelter, expanding affordable housing is a key component to assisting and reducing homelessness. Affordable housing both prevents, helping reduce housing instability and exits from homelessness, especially when paired with the supportive service. And again, most of these projects you've seen, we've already allocated funding for. And here, again, so the city is just a partner in all of the projects. We provide either land, we finance the gap in construction, and then we partner with them to ensure that they can apply for federal and state awards. Oh, this back we are.
Okay, and so something else that we have on the horizon, there is roughly 13 acres adjacent to SB Hope campus, and council has already given direction that they want that land to be developed for some type of housing. And we understand that there is just a mixed demographic of individuals, those who are exiting homelessness and they cannot afford a place to stay, those that are at risk of becoming homeless. And so rather than the city just taking the lead and deciding what we're going to do with that land, what we're proposing is having an affordable housing workshop, something that's innovative, where we can have experts in the field come to us and tell us how we can best utilize this land. These are just examples of some ideas. We have the micro apartments. And if you're coming out of homelessness, what the data will show you is that a lot of people who were unhoused are not really wanting or desiring to be in a massive space, 1,200 square foot apartment. They actually like the micro spaces, the micro units, and they can be built very efficient and cost effective. We could use a mix of tiny home communities, a mix of multifamily housing. It could be a combination of all three, or maybe something on there that we haven't even considered. The whole point is we would like to have the developers come and tell us their thoughts, their ideas, their concepts, and bring that back to council, share it with the community, and move forward in that direction. And so we hope that we can try to get this out in spring, sometime in April. And we're not going to act like we're the experts here. We just want to get some ideas and see how we can best utilize that land. So with that said, we are dealing with challenges. We have staffing capacity issues that's ongoing. And I'll tell you now, I'm losing my housing division manager, but it's a good thing. It happens. And in the city, you find if you can hold on to somebody for a couple years, do not be surprised when the next door city comes knocking and things happen. So it's just a consistent issue that we have to struggle with. We always need additional funding. We will forever be on the lookout for state and federal funds. Even though in the regional approach, we were talking about other cities, not necessarily the county, other than the county filling that funding gap, we will continuously go after COC funds or any other funds that come through from our county. Outreach expansion, yes, we definitely need to expand the outreach, and I'm not even sure if my staff went into detail. Salvation Army has a team of 5, but only 3 are boots to the ground. For the longest time, maybe as long as 6 months, and this is why this work is so dangerous. There was one of the outreach workers that had a fentanyl overdose just by touching a homeless person's belongings, just getting it through their skin. They were out for months. They're now back, but still 62 square miles. So we definitely need to look at expansion. Ideally, I would love to be able to have an outreach team that can reach the 4 corners of this city. We are just, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but you work with the organizations that are, under your purview. We have some great organizations. They're very compassionate. They love the work that they do, but in all honesty, they don't have that bandwidth or capacity. Nevertheless, we have federal funds that we must spend, and it's not enough to say we'll look elsewhere. We find ourselves in a position where we have to work with our local vendors, and so we do a lot of hand-holding. And there's organizations that once they get on a grander level and they start using these state and federal funds that they've never used before, and all the auditing, because there's accountability, everybody's watching now, so there's a lot of auditing, and it's been a challenge. And so I just want to put that out there. We will continue to work with our local nonprofits, but it's a teaching and learning experience, trying to get organizations up to speed and get them to the capacity level where they can be successful, whether it's our city or the county or anybody else. That's a challenge for us. We're running into that. So let's talk about something positive. Somebody hit on this. When I first came to this city, there was just one navigation center in our region, and that was Victorville. And since then, now we have Fontana that's coming online. Ontario has theirs. Lutheran Social Services Navigation Center will be up and running soon. Our cities at the end of this year. This is fantastic. Before, there was this concern about, oh my God, if we build it, they will come. And you were probably right, because when I was in the high desert, Hesperia sure said, once Victorville builds theirs, we're sending our people to them. So there was a genuine concern. But now we have navigation centers that are popping up left and right. And it makes it easier for our cities, our outreach teams, to reach out to another city, say, yeah, we'll go ahead and shelter this individual who came to us from Rialto because they're on our street and it's 10 o'clock at night. But the next morning, we're going to reach out to that city and call and say, hey, we need to coordinate. We need to get this person back to their place of origin. You're now connected to a navigation center or some type of shelter. So that fear of, oh my God, we're going to inherit everybody's homeless, that has greatly diminished because of partnerships and the greater collaboration. And so that's a good thing. Also on my team, at least once or twice a month, we have 5 or 6 cities that join together in person to talk about the issues, the challenges, what's coming down the pipeline, how we can better work together. And this gives us a united front, so that when we go to the county, it's not this siloed effect. We're hearing you doing this for Fontana, we're hearing you doing this for Chino. It's like, no, we all heard, and collectively we want to ask for the same, whether it's funding, whether it's resources. We stand collective now, and that's a good thing, because that wasn't here 3 years ago. We definitely need an expansion and rapid rehousing, but even though we have 2 organizations, what we're going to be looking for is to see how we can speed. It should be rapid. We need to see how we can speed up this process. There's a lot of people who are definitely in need of rental assistance. This is a program that I definitely want to keep moving forward. So it's an immediate link to permanent housing, gets people out of the shelters. And we're going to try to see what we can do to kind of expand it and maybe even bring in more partners to have a higher success and outcome rate. Regional CalAIM Consulting. So yes, it's great news to hear that CalAIM is going to be renewed by the state for another 5 years. That's revenue that we definitely need. It's going to help keep this navigation center afloat, whether we go solo or we do regional. But there is so much money on the table. There are a couple cities I'm aware of that use CalAIM funding to cover their outreach expenses. So gone are the days where the city has to cover everything. If you know how to properly navigate and access some of the resources and tools that are available, we can make it a lot easier on our city. And so those 5 or 6 cities that I mentioned are talking about, hey, let's pool our resources, get a consultant in place where we can draft an MOU that each city can mirror so that we can use CalAIM funds to go and cover our outreach expenses. This is in partnership and collaboration with just talking to other cities and being able to come together and have a unified, coordinated approach. So I just want to point that out. And now if you have any questions, we are here to answer them. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Cassandra. Thank you to the staff. That was a very wonderful, thorough presentation. And I will take questions from council. I don't see anyone putting anything on the screen. So is there any questions on the dais? No questions?
After.
Councilmember Ortiz, followed by Councilmember Canales.
That was a lot, and that was really good. Thank you. So I guess I'll just flip through. So when we talk about the 4,000 reaches, so are we we're double counting, double touching? Is that where?
No, that's not duplicated.
That's not
duplicated.
Okay, that's important. And so right now for preventative efforts, so our sole provider then is the Salvation Army.
Yes, for preventing, yes.
Do you think that there is a necessity to expand that from just the Salvation Army then to other organizations?
Absolutely, but the issue is, and I kind of just touched on that a little bit, is the capacity. Right now, Salvation Army is the number one organization where they have experience with prevention and diversion. So, and we're grateful to have that connection. But I couldn't tell you another organization off the top of my head right now in our city that could provide that service without some type of training or education. It's going to take a while. Like I said, there's a lot of organizations that have well-meaning, but they just don't have that bandwidth or capacity.
Now, my understanding is, and I'm just hearing this in conversation, is that the Salvation Army is looking to create a new headquarters, and that our city could be that hub and would expand services and to us. So are you guys, if that is fruitful, is that something you guys are being able to facilitate or at least stay on target with?
Yeah, and I think one of the concerns is we didn't want the optics of the community saying, wow, you guys are awarding everything to the Salvation Army. But they are one of the few organizations that have the means and the ability to get the job done. As it stands right now, without saying too much, they have a great number of interim shelter beds that we could utilize. We have went a different direction, but if things do not step up, we may have to shift gears. So yeah.
Yeah, I think, and to that point, it's important because, right, we don't want to look like we're narrowing our field. However, I think the proof is in the pudding with what Salvation Army has been able to do in the transition in just 1 year's time. And so in just my opinion, move forward, like, you know what I mean? Like if you can, and just, I guess, always be open to that conversation. I just wanted to double check. So the email, if someone is homeless, is they will, or whoever will reach out to homelessnesshelp@svcity.org. That's,
homeless help.
Homeless help.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that would be a person in need would reach out. Okay. And the number was, if a homeless person also reaches out, 909-936-3478. Fresh? I was listening. All right, cool. I did have a little bit of concern. I just want to make sure we were talking about on the key outreach points. So $1.4 million has been allocated over the next 3 years. So starting in 2025 and then sunsetting in 2028?
Correct.
Okay. And so how are we managing that? Are we looking for, I mean, because 3 years is like 2 minutes, right? So are we trying to make sure that what we can do can be expanded, can when these funds go, what are we going to do?
So yeah, that's probably more me. So we've already reached out to the state to see if there's going to be so we had Encampment Resolution 3 funds. There is going to be an Encampment Resolution 4 funds, but right now there's no talks beyond that. And let me tell you, it's not just cities, the county, everybody is kind of at a nervous point right now. The Cal Cities is trying to apply some pressure on the governor because there was a lot of funding that was taken away from housing and homelessness. The request is to ask the governor, please, we need all of that and then some. There's cuts in the federal government. So everybody's a little nervous right now, but we're constantly on the lookout. We even have consultants looking out for us if there's grant funds coming down the line. So if it applies in any kind of way, we're going to go after it.
Very cool. All right. Thank you for that. In looking at, I was looking at this infographic, and I said this during my agenda review on this, of like that picture where the police and everybody is standing together, and you've got police department, housing, homelessness, and public works. And I really felt like in hearing, I think Lieutenant Luna talk about that third party regional partnership
I think is that important component, because what we face, and I was with the city manager the other day, is even though we're doing, I think, a great job in being able to navigate what's hitting our streets, they're literally crossing. Yeah. Like they're literally just crossing the street. So that triangulation within the city, I really think is more of a quadrant, because what happens is as soon as you step outside of our jurisdiction, we are coordinating, but they don't technically have to respond in such a way. Like my understanding is that Caltrans is not going to prosecute, and Caltrans is going to come when their resources are available. And I think the county has done great in their approach to us and through the flood channels and all of these things, but that's still a response to a response. And working to solidify those MOUs, like I know the city of Riverside was able to coordinate with PD and Caltrans so that we don't need a call today because we got this, and we're being able to do that and making sure, and I don't even know what that means for being able to, a part of that MOU is reciprocate funding and saying like, we're basically covering your part. So is that in this piece of that, is there?
That's the major part of the MOU is we already can go on Caltrans land and the PD can't, but it's to reciprocate funding, give us a funding source when we do it. It doesn't have to be constant. It's only a reimbursement when we do it. That's the way the Riverside agreement works.
Perfect. Yeah, because it's like those are our officers and our time and our money, but nobody cares, right? It's on that corner. So,
and I think there's certain parameters. I can't remember what the specific parameters are, but there are certain parameters to it.
And how close are we getting to that being solidified?
I'm hoping to have it in front of you by March.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, great. Thank you. And then super happy to hear about the Prop 47 funding. My question is, and I think this has always been an important distinction when we look at the breakdown, which I appreciate the demographics of it, is that roughly, and I think we're being conservative at 60, I'd probably say 65, 70% of those on the street are mentally ill and drug addicted. And last year, the state assembly moved forward AB 46, which is like this ability to discern between who can be put into rehabilitation on the street versus who should be incarcerated and then put into treatment. And when we talk about these substance abuse or substance use disorder treatments, where are we in being able to work? Because I know VARP is doing rapid rehousing, but I think their niche is really that treatment, and just, but treatment is optional. Where are we working with being able to really be a place where those who don't know where they're at or are cognizant of the situation of which they are surrounded in can be treated? Like, because I know it's resourcing, but we're not mental health professionals. We're housing people. We're public servants with a county like demand for their services in a city setting. So how do you see that for us?
So the good thing is, once the navigation center is complete, Helping Hearts specializes in the mental health and the substance use addiction. I was trying to see if Lieutenant Luna was still here. Is he still here? Yes. So I don't think he mentioned this, but they're looking to partner with St. John's Community Health. St. John's Community Health already has a street mobile medicine clinic. They've been doing, they're awesome. So to be able to have something like that on our streets where it can go to different locations and meet people where they are and address those acute mental health issues. I don't want to misspeak. Is it also substance abuse? Okay. So let's let Lieutenant Lennon talk about it more. Okay. So the mental health, the substance abuse, as well as the case management, to be able to have a dedicated mobile unit. Now, Healthcare in Action, they're on our street, but they're not dedicated to, it's not like we, the city, can call or we have a person over here. It doesn't work like that. We're not paying them. So to be able to have an organization that can give us a schedule, roll out the locations if PD needs to make a call, or even outreach for that matter, to say, hey, I have an individual over here on the west side, blah, 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 blah. They can go and provide that assistance, do the assessments, do the screening, provide the services. And if I'm not mistaken, actually provide some level of medication to maybe help diminish or minimize a person who's having a acute, disorder or whatever, just to the point until they can get to an actual hospital. So there's great benefits to it that's coming online. I don't know the details of it because this is under PD, but it's something that I know that the ACLU was definitely in favor of the city moving forward with. So to be able to launch something like this is really cool.
And you bring up a very key component in all of, I think, a part of the large sense of nonsense of homelessness entrapped in our city is the ACLU, and an agreement of which we are locked into, whether we agree or not. It's what it is. But I wanted, are they watching? I guess, or can we send them the tape so that no one acts like anybody's surprised at what the city of San Bernardino is trying to adhere to and to incorporate? Because I think there's some really good stuff on the table. I was a little concerned, and maybe I'm wrong, but the Welcome Home, you showed that they went from 7 beds to 36 in your slide. But my understanding, and when I had spoken to the organization, was they only had 6 beds still available. So is there another service area where they've added those beds? Or is that regional, or is that in our city?
No, it's our city.
Hold on, sorry. And I don't have a number, I'm sorry.
Did I pass it? I'm sorry.
Go to right before navigation centers.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, way back. Are they up there?
Yeah, right there. My understanding was Welcome Home had
Family Assistance Program. Is this Redlands?
Is that Redlands?
Yeah, and we have a representative here, Christian and Suzette, but do we have a representative from Family Assistance Program to confirm this date? Yeah. Suzette's here. Sorry.
Can you please approach the podium? Thank you so
Put
much.
you on the spot, sorry.
Welcome Home is a 7-bed facility.
Okay.
Period. Still is yesterday, still is today, and will be tomorrow.
Okay, then that's on us. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that was
Thank you about that.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure, because, when people are like, not, so,
okay.
Okay, if we can just make sure we update that, would be super awesome.
Thank you.
And then to that point, you said no need to influx emergency shelters, so we need to move more to the transitional permanent housing. And this is something I consistently say every time we talk about our housing element, because I thought what you said about affordable housing and bringing in the developers is beautiful, right? Like, let the experts do what they do. But while we may have approved it, hold on to it and put it on a shelf, the implementation of making sure that we're building a sufficient amount of housing, as you said in the beginning of this, is the majority of homelessness is also dependent upon the lack of housing. And, supply drives down demand. And so I hope with the housing and community and economic portion of this that we are working in hand with all of your efforts to make sure that where we can build housing, we are, and that's incorporated with the general plan. So I'm just shouting that out to Gabriel over there and the city manager over there. I think nothing's happening in a vacuum and nothing's happening on its own island, because we need all of this. And then last, no, not last. Will the SB Hope campus facilitate family housing as well?
No families. On this particular location, it's only 2.5 acres where this building will be. It's very tight, and it's just too compact.
Okay. And you had brought up a concern about nonprofit accountability or possibilities, right? What they're capable of doing versus what we said they can do. Mm-hmm. I believe it must have been, because I've only been here for a year. So last year, I think we asked early on to start receiving reports from our nonprofits about what they're actually accomplishing, and I haven't seen a report. And we asked for it quarterly.
So we do get that information, and probably I don't know why we didn't share it, but we have to obtain that because the funding sources that we're using for between ESG, CDBG, those are the 2 primary sources. HUD requires it from us, so we have to gather it from them. Can we share it? Yeah. Okay.
With some feedback on that, I think would be vital for the council, so that we can either echo your concerns, address your concerns, or do whatever we need to do. Because if you're feeling a way about it and we're allocating the funds,
she was just letting me know that we do put in the city manager's report that way. But we can also maybe do something where it's like a memo format so the council can be aware.
Yeah, I mean, I guess however we ask for it, just so that we know that we're supplying the right things for you. This is just my take on it. Like, I hear people get up time out and time out again saying like your nonprofits are useless, right? Okay, well, which ones and why? And what are we doing? What are we not doing? So quantify it, qualify it. I don't care, but I think it's fair to say, okay, well, where are we deficient?
She's saying it goes in those reports that we send out every Friday to you. So I think that's what she's saying when she's saying the city manager.
Right, but does it say need not apply again? That's what I need to know, right?
Oh,
like,
okay.
I know, yeah, I'm pretty sure you're not putting that in a public document.
No.
So I think that's what I'm saying is I think we need to facilitate that conversation of you're giving us numbers. Are they the target? Two different things. So yeah, just that more open approach to helping what you need, right? I don't want you to work with people that aren't working, right?
And then I'm sorry, Councilman, I just wanted to say, and I'm being very cautious with my words because I don't want to upset anybody. Everybody's willing, has good intentions. Just some need some help. That's all. Yeah, that's all.
Well, because we know what the road of good intentions, are paved with this, and so but what I want is we can't get better if we don't fix what we're doing. And I think this 70-page thing is a beautiful effort. And I think the three options you gave us, now my personal opinion is I think we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater if we give away what we've worked so hard to do. And giving people control of an area within the city of San Bernardino to do what they're going to do with. And then here again, we're going to say San Bernardino still doesn't control its beds. And 60% is better than no percent or a portion thereof, because now we're playing piggyback to other people's where Fontana's like, hey, you want to play? You're going to play here with us. And I think there's between those two options is that regional press, us leading and saying we've built this kind of like, what we did with our animal shelter, but making sure that we don't get ahead of ourselves, overpromise and underdeliver, because that's also a very strong part of our history. So I like that you broke that down. But council, if part of the conversation is I really think we need to look at a way to retain ownership of what we're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mayor Pro Tem Canales.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you to Ms. Searcy. I always say it's a breath of fresh air when we get to hear from you. I was really disappointed when I had learned that the city had brought on a consultant to really navigate us through the Homeless Navigation Center and kind of didn't really defer to you, whom we had hired as our Deputy Director of Homelessness and Housing. So it is a pleasure for you to be sitting at that table. You're very knowledgeable. I know your knowledge and background. And so I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your service to the city and what you're bringing to really bring this project to fruition. It is greatly appreciated. I did want to ask just some things in regards to some homeless terminologies and whatnot. You had pinpointed out, which we all know. I did a little bit of research in regards to previous point in time counts, and it's an unfortunate trend for other cities, which I defer to Riverside City because we always say San Bernardino is a county seat. So that's the reason why we have more homeless. Well, Riverside City is also a county seat too. So I wanted to do a comparison of their numbers, and I see it's a drastic difference. Their recent point in time count numbers for Riverside were 614 versus ours, which are more than double, over 1,500. And I love the fact that we have actually increased our shelter bed capacity. But we do have to realize, even though we've increased our shelter bed capacity, unfortunately, our numbers are still increasing as well. And so with that being said, we come to this, major decision of investing quite a bit of money into a 200-bed homeless navigation center. And we're too far in. We're not turning back or changing any plans, that's for sure. However, in order for me to really make the best decision for us to move forward appropriately and think about sustainability of this navigation center, what I need to understand is our true sustainability capacity. There's been a lot of different figures that have been thrown out there. There's a lot of different what ifs, a lot of things that are dependent on things that are beyond the city that do make it challenging. Like you said, none of us have a crystal ball. So none of us know what's going to be happening, 3, 4, 5 years out from now. But I do have to ask the question because it was a little confusing for me personally in regards to the regional approach and the assumptions of cost. I see kind of like a sliding scale. It seems like at full capacity at the 200 bed, it was about $53,000 to operate per bed. Is that correct? That was a per bed cost.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So my question is, because on the regional approach, which is approach that I have highly advocated for, and I think it's a great approach for us to take on. However, the cost, it's not adding up to me. So there's some figures, like for instance, a bed allocation of 5, a cost at $200,000, which is approximately $40,000 per bed. Well, with what the other figures reflect, that seems like we're not really recouping the full cost.
But are you taking the fact that we're offsetting the cost because of the revenue that's coming in? So that's the factor that has to be added. So the breakdown was showing the cost with, no CalAIM revenue, how much it would actually cost to operate 100 or 200 bed facility. And then we accounted for the anticipated revenue, and then that gave us the net operating cost, which filled in the gap. So are you referring to just basic costs, or are you talking about costs after the revenue stream?
So what I saw, and maybe I'm mistaken, because at $53,000, I thought was the cost per bed prior to getting any funds from anybody else. That's just because there has to be a set cost to do business. So what is the cost per bed?
Yeah. Let me go back to that slide. So the way it should have been was the actual cost, period. But hold on, sorry.
Yes, actual, please.
Yeah, no, I believe you're correct. That estimates at 200 beds, because that's about 10 million, 10 and a half.
Okay.
And that's about what the estimates were.
Okay. So if that's the actual cost to actually, service an individual that comes into our navigation center, why are we not imparting that cost on the other partners that are being a part of the regional approach? But what's the difference? I guess I'm not understanding. Because even so, when we go up to the 15 beds at $425,000, and again, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I'm assuming that this is the cost to the regional partner, then that cost goes down to about $23,000 per bed.
So I think a lot of numbers are in this presentation, but if you cut it down to the base level, right now the estimate is 53,000 bed. And if we go into a partnership, I think these are exploratory numbers. But if you want us to explore it more, and that's all we would ask, do you want us to explore it more? If you wanted us to explore more, then we could come back with this is exactly what's going to occur. Okay. Because I think there's a variety of things that, as the presentation went through, there was sometimes when CalAIM was included in the costs. There was sometimes when it was only a partial year. There was sometimes when it was regional, and there were sometimes when it was the county owning it. And so, but the 53,000 is sort of what the estimate is right now based on these numbers per bed. And I think the CalAIM then would reduce it by that. But if you wanted to look at a regional, I think all the partners should share in the costs in the same way. And if I would ask you to consider both a regional and also looking at the county option if the county would consider purchasing it, because I think that would lower our costs also to do that. I don't know that for sure, and I'm not saying I'm not recommending that we go that direction. I'm recommending that you just give us direction to look at that and bring back a report to you so that you can sort of have a full evaluation of which approach you would want and what the offsets are of it and what the benefits to the city are.
And I would like to go ahead. So you're looking for direction. Do you need a vote?
A vote would be helpful if you just did just a vote on direction to just explore the local partnership with other cities and a county.
So I'm ready for that, but I just had a couple more questions. For the operating cost, what are they what's all inclusive of operating costs? When we talk about cost per bed, does that also entail the cost associated for us as a city to operate a navigation center? Because you've also expressed our capacity is limited. We're working with Helping Hands. I don't have any questions about them. I think they're very reputable and capable, but obviously we still have to have some kinds of functions within city staff that in conjunction with running a navigation center. So are those costs associated in the full operating cost of this navigation center?
Yes, that's from start to finish. What it would cost in terms of the daily operational impact, the staffing, all of the comprehensive services, the meals, from start to finish, full operations. And so there is an actual breakdown list that our lead operator provided to us. And I think we could share.
I think for clarity, though, I think you were also asking our staffing costs.
Yeah.
No. This is just strictly.
This is the operation.
The operator's cost to operate this facility.
And so that was my next concern, because that's what I figured. So that doesn't really reflect the true cost to our city, because again, we would have to have some involvement if we're operating a regional navigation center. So with that being said, would there be need for additional staff?
No. So we're going to provide oversight, but we're not going to operate this facility, Helping Hearts is. Now, in terms of coordination, the way this building is structured, and I know we didn't get a chance to go into detail about it, there is going to be space for a city hub so that we definitely have outreach staff, to some extent, the peace team or PD staff that have access to the facility, whether they're bringing in people, helping with the intake process, or participating in some of the actual support services that are going to be in place. It's still a city facility. The city has oversight, but we are not stepping in and taking the lead as the operator. We're going to allow the operator to do the day-to-day oversight, and then we'll just make sure that everything is in place and the facility is running sufficiently. But we ourselves are not.
No, and I understand that, but we still have to be able to provide the proper oversight, because it's still our facility. We still bear the responsibility at the end of the day, not the operator. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, it is correct to an extent, though. So, like, I don't understand. I'm almost confused. Like, are you asking if we're going to get into the weeds and deal with the processing and the case management and assisting people with services?
No, not the actual day-to-day operations. But my point is, it's just not a hands-off approach. I'd hope not.
Well, it's oversight in the sense.
If I can interject, I think it's going to be. You're also talking about property management.
Exactly. There's been
some parts of that, and I haven't looked at our contract, and so we can come back with whether that property management, some of those are in the operator's contract. My familiarities, sometimes that's on the city. As you're aware, I oversaw 2 facilities in Fullerton, or I was part of a regional facility as well as a city facility in Fullerton. And so I understand what you're saying. You're asking, what are those other oversight costs for the city? We can bring that back as part of, as we're exploring these 3 options.
And I want to make sure that we do consider that, because as we go into something, whether it is, whatever the option is, whatever the council agrees to unanimously, again, it's just not hands off. And we do know, we had all of you guys cut your budgets by 5%. I want to be cognizant of what we're truly working with and understand our true staffing needs and capacity to make sure that we are ultimately successful in this endeavor that we embark on. I want it to truly be sustainable. So I want to be able to take in all that in consideration up front so that we are properly prepared to take this on. And then just another quick question. It was in regards to Deep Blue, which is great that I know you've been talking about us having our own system. I just want to know, I know like the county, they use Esri's HMIS. Does this integrate with HMIS?
Yes, it does. And so it kind of actually saves us so we don't have to keep duplicating the work.
Okay, perfect. And then the acceptance of services, this was just a quick question. What does acceptance of services entail? So is that kind of broad when a homeless individual accepts a motel voucher, or if they accept a meal, is that all included as accepting services? Do we kind of break it down?
It depends on the program itself. But yes, if, for instance, somebody's connected to rapid rehousing, there is a list of policies and procedures that individual has to follow. They agree to participate in case management. They agree to fill out applications for certain housing. That's just one example. The other thing could be like maybe the motel voucher program. They agree to abide by the rules and the regulations. They, agree to check in daily with their case manager. It just depends on the program, but that's what we need. Whatever that program outlines, whatever the outlines are for that particular program, they agree to follow.
And I guess it would be helpful for us to see how many individuals are actually accepting housing. Because we just kind of get a blanket number. And for us, I mean, 60% of that is just they accepted, food or a meal or, something of that nature. It would be nice to know how many homeless individuals are actually accepting the housing resources that are offered to them when available. And with that, that was my last question. Again, thank you. I sincerely appreciate it. I would like to make a motion for us to move forward with exploring both. Oh, sorry. You had questions? Yeah. Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Ibarra, followed by Councilmember Ortiz, followed by Councilmember Sanchez. And I believe there's a second by Councilmember Ortiz. Councilmember Ibarra.
Thank you for the presentation, very in-depth. And I know there's still more hurdles to tackle. The main one is it is not illegal to be homeless in the state of California. So that is one of the biggest hurdles. A lot of people don't want to be housed. They like to be independent out in the streets instead of being under a roof. So I know that's one of the hurdles. And I know when ideally people would say, put the beds and we'll be able to clear out all the homeless from the street. Unfortunately, that's not the case. They're going to have to want the shelter and the housing in order to be off the streets. And that's the reality that we have to face as a city when we build big projects like this. The partnerships, the cities that are coming forth and building their shelters, I applaud them because I remember, like you said, at one point it was just Victorville that had their hub. I know Orange County, Santa Ana and Anaheim had to do a lawsuit for all the other cities that were dropping off homeless into their cities. And that's how they were able to build. And not only that, but it helped offset a lot of the operational costs. But I will keep being vocal that homelessness is not just a one city, one region problem. It's everywhere. In my ideal world, every city should have at least one shelter because we've had people that, for one reason or another, they probably gave enough fight for with a family member and they have to go somewhere else. And if there's no hotel rooms, they rely on being out on the streets and they have to look for a tent to spend the night on. So I commend the work that you're doing. Now, I do have some questions on the report. The first one on the hygiene and support map. I noticed there was months listed on under those providers for the mobile showers. And I just wanted clarification because I know Benjamin E. Jones Resource Center, it just says October on it. And then we have Family Assistance Program, September, October, November, December, January. What does that mean? Is that the only months where they serve at those addresses or?
No, I'm sorry, Councilmember Ibarra. That's just the one with the map of the different locations. Mm-hmm. That's just, sorry. That was just an old, it needed to be updated.
Okay.
That's all, sorry.
That's why I wanted clarification on that. The next question I have is the VARP units. There's a little discrepancy in what was presented to us here versus what's in the report. Is it 12 or 18?
So we entered an agreement and it was supposed to be 18, but VARP has not got clearance to expand to a full 18 beds. It has to be cleared by the marshal. They have to get the C of O. And so there's been some delay on their part. So right now, we had to amend the agreement to push it down to 12 instead of the 18 initially in that first agreement.
Okay. And then you asked a question about Deep Blue software. Thank you. And that was on my list also. The shelter bed capacity report, we've come a long way. I know when I first came into office, our PD was only working with 100 beds available. And now to know that there's other nonprofits that are joining our city and trying to help us address the homeless situation, I am glad that they are. But I do know there are rehab homes, there are private owners that are accepting Section 8 vouchers, accepting youth into their units, their homes, that are not on this report. So we have way more than 900. I know that for a fact. I went through the list, and there's a few that I do not see on the list. Are they still doing their own thing because of the funders that they have, or what is keeping these nonprofits that do have shelters in our city from helping our city house the homeless? Because for domestic violence, for example, and people with medical conditions, chronic medical conditions, too, have shelters in our city, and they're not listed on this.
If it's not a true shelter, like they're providing rehabilitation, it wouldn't be classified as a shelter. So It just depends on
because we discussed recuperative care and
not
I
on
think
the shelter.
rehabbing from
We didn't count recuperative care beds on the shelter on the shelter list, not recuperative care. Like the Illumination Foundation, when they were here, they provided recuperative care beds for us, but they're not on that list.
correct.
Yeah,
They're not on the list, and yeah,
but they're
they
not
are
a true
helping
shelter.
people. Yeah, they are helping people to not be homeless too. Because if let's say somebody has a family member that is doing drugs or alcohol, and it's getting really hard to have them at home, they're gonna end up homeless eventually. And unless we have these rehab centers that are helping them get their life back on track, then there has to be like a name for them. You know, they have to be included here because there's quite a few in our city also that are not being accounted for. But yes, so commend you that and all the nonprofits that are joining with our city and helping us address the unhoused that do want to have the services and do want to have a roof over their heads. So thank you for everybody that might be watching or listening, because like I said, in my ideal world, every city should have a shelter, at least one shelter to address their homeless. And we've had situations where we've spotted other outside cities, agencies dropping them off in our city. And then we don't know what happens after that motel voucher expires. Does the city come back and take them to another motel? We don't know. A lot of them end up in our streets. And that's what's happening. And that shouldn't be the case. And then I'll say my little anecdote that I had from a couple of years ago. I was at a conference, and 2 city elected officials were bragging to me that they buy tickets. If they find a homeless person in their cities, they buy them tickets to do a one-way trip to where the bus ends. That was our city. And I just threw a number out there and I said, well, if I find a person from your city, how about our city goes to your city and we charge your city $100,000 per year per person that you bring into our city? Their jaws dropped, never heard about it anymore. And so when I saw your numbers, your figures of, you know, the whole wraparound services, the annual cost per bed per person, I was almost spot on. Because it does take money, it does take time to rehab an individual that refuses housing and refuses services. So I commend all the work that you're doing. Like I said, there's still more challenges to face. There's got to be some form of an incentive from the state that says you have to have service, you have to get housed. You cannot be out on the streets. Because I've said it before, and I'll still say it, living in the streets is not a good quality of life for anybody. Not for the businesses, not for the residents who live there, and not for the person that's out in the streets. Nights are cold. There's in the mountains, they face a lot of blizzards, a lot of snowstorms up there. It's going to be hard for somebody to be camping out there, and even in our city with the rain and the cold weather. So thank you for all the efforts that you have been doing. When I came on board, there was nobody in that department, and you've made it a big department, Cassandra. So thank you. And I'm glad that you made the report this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilmember Ortiz, followed by Councilmember Sanchez.
And I think Councilwoman Navarro hit on what I was going to talk about. I think, you know, these are all great, right? These are great efforts we're putting into place. But our one key problem is that, no, it's not illegal to be homeless, but we have anti-camping ordinances. It is against the law to do drugs. It's any regular person other than and this is going to be 100%. The rest of us, the 99% of us that have to live by the rules, cannot be naked on the streets, cannot do drugs on the streets, cannot have intercourse on the streets, cannot carry stuff, have weapons. We can't store our stuff. I can't even have a trailer parked in my driveway, let alone the craziness that we see on the streets every single day. And the question from the community is, okay, these are great. This is awesome. Why aren't we stopping the stuff that we see on the streets?
So
what is then, where does the law then, once we've done this, when does the law take place? Because you can't even drink a beer in your front yard, let alone do the stuff that we see happen, and you can't trespass. I can't just go in my neighbor's house and take their hose because I don't have a hose today. Where's the accountability, I guess, is my question.
Well, I can start, and then either Chief Goodman or Lieutenant Luna can get up and speak if they want to add to what I have to say. So in my discussions and what I've actually seen firsthand, some probably don't happen, but I do see that the police are proactive in enforcing those laws that you're speaking of. And so I've seen that they've been proactive. There are areas, and we sort of hit on in Caltrans. Caltrans will not allow them to be proactive on Caltrans land. So they can only be proactive in certain situations if they're in public space, or if they're in a property where the person has given them permission to enter the property for that type of situation. And I think the police have actually even gone further this year, just recently, and the chief and I were talking about it very recently today, that they've expanded to a second peace team in order to even be more proactive. And so I think they are doing it. Obviously, you don't see it everywhere, but I think we are trying to do it. We are trying to do things that are against the law. But obviously, as you said, if you're homeless, that's not against the law, and we aren't trying to do anything regarding that. But as far as activities, we are, and as far as trying to deal with trash and other things, I think both them and Public Works have been very proactive. Now, with that said, I'm only hitting the highlights, and if either of them want to get up and expand on it, they're more than welcome. By hopefully I've hit many of the highlights to your question.
Well, is there a way to break down then, like, I guess, because I know we see the police reports, you know, of like crimes and all this. Is there a way to like to hone in on which crimes are, because I think we did this when we were talking about the liquor store, right? Gabriel did a great job of breaking that down for us by like actual, like these are, you know, encampment issues, or, you know, this, so that we can better navigate, like, here's the enforcement piece of what law enforcement's doing versus, you know, here's the homeless issue, because I think they're the same thing. Now, the other problem we face, and this is, Lewis is leaving, but I'm going to defer to Lewis, is we don't create the laws that tie our hands. Sacramento does. And so another important part about this is advocacy on our own behalf of making sure that the police can police. Because it's so comfortable, I believe, in the last couple years to be a criminal than it is to be a regular person doing regular things every day. Because whatever systematic oppression has allowed you to be able to steal whatever you want or to do whatever you want outside of the purview of the law. That's also another key component to this homeless issue. So we can sell it, we can lease it, we can run it, but if you can't enforce it, we got to talk about the whole problem in and of itself. So I just wanted to add that part. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilmember Sanchez?
To comment on what was just said, the police chief and the police department has been very explicit that being homeless does not give you a pass or provides you with immunity from breaking the law, especially law that affect the quality of life. I've seen in the last 2 years a stark difference in enforcement, and that's been in conjunction because of what our city attorneys were able to do to reach an agreement with the ACLU, as well as the chief and the police department's leadership, ensuring that those consistent attacks to quality of life have been stymied. There's been a question asked of this council as to how staff moves forward with not just the navigation center, but there were two more subtle questions, I believe. I'll start off with one of those. The Palm Field, the city acquired with ARPA money land directly west of the current navigation center, where the navigation center will be. I'd like to include, if you'd be amenable, council member, to adding, giving direction to staff to either contract with a consultant or do an internal study as to how we move forward with that land acquisition. So that land is now tied to some sort of housing support. So whether it's affordable housing, permanent supportive housing, or in any other type of housing element there. So if we can have staff start to make ground on finding out what we're going to do with that, that's one of them. The second is one that's concerning and I think is pressing. The shortfall is not $2 million. The shortfall is not $11 million. I believe the shortfall is $13 million for the navigation center. We are counting on an $11 million contribution from the county. With that $11 million counted, there's still a shortfall of over $2 million. Am I correct? So there's a total of 13, and this navigation center needs to be built.
And that's just based on the estimates. That's before you actually award bid or anything.
So that is a pressing concern of ours, because the shelter needs to be built. Actually, there needs to be a certificate of occupancy by December 31st of 2026. So if we can also add direction to staff to come back as soon as possible, to make every effort to press negotiations with the county to find out if they are open to contributing that $11 million, identifying the gap, which at very least is going to be $2.8 million. So we need to identify where that $13 million is going to come from, present that to council, start to conduct a study or hire a consultant to find out what we're going to do with the old Palm Field, which I think in conversations with staff, the paradigm shift has been away from just shelters to permanent supportive housing. Finding out whether we do that through a third party, whether we do a sale to the county to then contract with an operator. And then the third, if you don't mind, is having staff pursue looking at options of a regional approach for the shelter and the outright sale of the shelter to the county for its operation. Is that something, council member? So it's three things. Do you guys have them? Our city clerk's been real quiet. City clerk, you'll have to read that back to all of us to make sure we all have it. But that would be my, if you're fine with that, I think.
And I'm amenable to those changes.
I thought it's a second. Thank you. Councilman Ortiz, would you second to that amendment? Okay, so there's this, Mr. City Manager.
The Councilmember Sanchez and the City Council, the only concern I would have about coming as media as possible on the $13 million is that's been sitting out there for a variety of reasons. Even before I was here, that $13 million has. And part of it is this trying to figure out where the county fits in on the partnership and all that. So I think that'll have to come back as a part of that package, because if we push too hard on that piece, you may have a shortfall there, and that might cut off the other discussions. It's going to have to be a sort of a holistic discussion at that point. We will have to have some funds that will just sort of have to hold that there while we're having that discussion. I think we need to come back with the county discussion sooner than later, but the sooner and later in my mind is hopefully before the end of the fiscal year.
Councilor Mayor Pro Tem Canas.
And just a quick question regarding the funding, because I understand that we're seeking, a partnership with the county. Have we tried to go beyond the county to any of our state or federal partners?
So not directly, but that could be a part of what we look at earmarks. The state is questionable whether the state will do earmarks this year. The federal it probably will, or at least they haven't indicated they won't. So we can look at that as part of that. Okay, now.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilor Sanchez.
If you can just explain to me, so the identifying the where we can fill that $13 million gap, that's something we're still pursuing, right? I mean, we have to have that before the end of the year, because this is a funding gap for the navigation center that has to be built by the end of the year.
So what my anticipation all along has been, because of where we sit, that we would use reserves to fill it while we try to find a way to then backfill those reserves in for it at that point. Because if we wait to award the contracts until we deal with the $13 million, then we will have an issue getting it done.
Oh, no, absolutely. But that doesn't preclude us from starting to look for that money while we fill it. I mean, I thought that we'd end up having to pay this with general fund, or we don't have fund balance anymore now. but filling it up with what we have right now, liquid cooling, and then finding out how we fill that. Yeah,
exactly.
So that's no, I'm not saying that has to be done before. We're gonna have to probably use general fund for this, if we can.
Well, but that's why we're looking at these other options. So then we'll have that. So we'll have that funding in hold to keep this project moving, and then we will be looking at those other options that have just been included in the motion.
Just be, maybe you include the attorneys. You have talent in your city manager's office, and making sure that if we look at when we look at the possibility of selling to the county, any constraints that might exist, not just with the sale because of the capital stacking, but also if we were to sell the proceeds from that selling of that asset, are those funds constrained? Are they going to be restricted funds?
Sure.
Because this idea that we can sell the asset and then use that windfall of money, whether it's 35 million, 30 million, 40 million, will be used for streets or anything else, I think is not very likely. So we're going to have to see how that's going to play into the operation.
Thank you. Councilmember Ortiz?
I guess so. I mean, I just want to make sure maybe I'm hearing this. We're going to have to build this.
Right.
Like, we're not, whether we lease it or something, it's got to be built by the end of the year.
We're coming forward with the award of bid on January 21st.
Okay, so we're on the hook for that. And I guess then maybe when in looking possibly at this, because on this regional approach, you have the bed allocation example, and I know that's just hypothetical, but you've got like 5% on the table for other partnerships, and we're sitting at 60%. So I know we look at how much is ours, but there is maneuverability in our 60% to be like, maybe it's 50%, and then you guys are going to carry the other 10%. So, I mean, there's...
Right. No, definitely flexibility.
Okay.
That's just a scenario, but we'll look at Verizon.
Okay. Cool. All right. Then I still second everything. That's good stuff.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Wait, I'm sorry, but you had said that you wanted to meet with affordable housing people, right? Was that still? Did I miss that or?
No, you're correct. So I wanted to chime back in with Councilmember Sanchez because we've already acquired that land, Jason DeConfield. And so that was our thought, was to see, well, what can we do to develop that land? Once we have some ideas of how we can develop it, to best meet the needs of our community, then I think it would be appropriate to then go to entities like the county to see, well, are you interested in taking this over? But we really don't know how to develop at this point. That's why we wanted to have the affordable housing workshop with developers coming in and giving us concepts and ideas.
Thank you. Is that to be added to the motion?
I think we're playing on.
We're already, okay, great. Awesome, thank you. Councilmember Ibarra?
Yes, one more question. So on the funding that we are short for the navigation center, will that stop it from being built, or can it still proceed? It will just be short the 13 million, and we'll have to figure out where that money comes from.
My plan is that we will use reserves to initially fund it as a bridge, and then hopefully one of these options, we will get some of that money replenished into the reserve.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any further comments from council? Seeing that I do have some comments, but excellent questions and comments, council. Going back to the presentation, and I just want to emphasize this because I know Councilmember Ortiz kind of mentioned it. The slide about the outreach key impacts says 2024, which was not that long ago. There's a statement here that says 4,434 individuals were connected, were at the outreach we're connecting with. That's significant. That's not double taps. That's actual 4,434 individuals. Correct, Cassandra?
That's correct.
It says 2024. Wow. Great job. That is amazing. So I just want the public to just really absorb that, because the city is doing a lot to really address this. And you said it in the last 3 years, a lot of effort. So just want to say thank you to the staff, all the departments, the partners, and our allies. Thank you so much.
And that's with only 3 boots on the ground.
Yes, it's amazing. So small but mighty. Seriously, thank you. And we all really are grateful for the staff's effort. The next question I have, the Peace Team, Chief, March of 23, there's a launch of the Coast Team. Is that the same team, Coast? Can you clear, it's just for our information, because I know there's so much effort that you, under your leadership, and your men and women of your department have done such great job. And the Coast was launched March of 23, and the Peace, can you kind of help us understand? Thank you.
Council, yes, the Coast Team is a multidisciplinary team that's comprised of police officers, fire department personnel, behavioral health professional, and an animal, what do you call it, a dog. Therapy dog, there you go. Therapy dog. And this concept is basically one that provides immediate stabilization and support for individuals found suffering from mental illness. Unlike the Peace Team is also focused on enforcement. The Coast Team is not. The Coast Team doesn't make arrests. The Coast Team doesn't, unless there's an emergency where they have to. That's not their mission. That's not their effort. It's about stabilization.
And does that Coast Team still exist?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And so on top of that, on everything that we just saw, Coast Team as well. So it's a lot of these wonderful different efforts. So thank you, Chief, for sharing that information. What else? Councilor Ortiz, you mentioned, asked about the Navigation Center, whether it serves families. And you confirmed it's just for men and women. So for families that experiencing homelessness with children, how is that being addressed in our community?
So there's several organizations that do a great job attending to that population, that demographic. And so let's say our outreach team comes across a family, and they do right now. If we can't put somebody up immediately in our motel voucher program or our interim shelter program, then we absolutely are connecting them to agencies that service that population. So we are not excluding them. We are just working collaboratively with those organizations.
Thank you. And are you working with the school district? Because I know there's efforts there in the county regarding about homeless children to make sure that we're all engaging and talking. I know there's a lot of effort that we've done to really collaborate more. Is that something that's happening?
So we don't work directly with the school district in terms of having that open communication to find out who's homeless or who's not homeless. However, there are times where the schools will actually reach out and call our outreach team. And when that takes place, then the team will go out and engage and try to assist with finding that individual, or maybe in some cases their families, a shelter or a place where they can stay and stabilize.
Thank you. As long as we're talking and willing to have that dialogue and help one another, I think that's really important. There's a slide talked about VARP's beds. On there it says 6 men, 6 women beds, 12 beds total. And the presenter mentioned 18 beds. So is it 16 or 18? So I just want to make sure if that was...
Yeah. So the contract was set up for 18 beds. That was the original goal. But the VARP has run into some hiccups with the permitting, getting the conditional use permit. And so they're only able to provide us with 12 beds right now. So we had to amend that contract. That was just an oversight. It's 12 beds, actually.
Okay, so 12 beds. So I just want to make sure we understand that. Deep Blue software, wow, thank you. Because a lot of my conversation when I do engage out there with partners or other folks, we talk about why don't we have a system? And the fact that you guys are doing that, wow. And piloting that. So thank you so much for leading that effort and to perhaps transition that to even a bigger platform, right? To make sure that we're all on the same page.
And I have to give credit to the chief because he actually helped to facilitate that. So yeah, big shout out to the chief. But it's something we desperately need. So instead of the police having their own data and and homeless has its own data, now it can be all under one roof. And then it helps us to create a narrative that we all can share.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Big kudos. Big round of applause for him for all the work that he's doing and his men and women of the department. Thank you so much, Chief, for doing that. Okay, let's see. And just going back to the $11 million gap, and I appreciate the council members mentioning that. Just want to be very clear. So it's $11 million plus the 2.894, right? So in total, 13.894 million is the gap.
Wow.
Well, I just want to clarify that that's based on the estimates, but the pets hadn't come in.
So it could fluctuate based on it. So, but we're looking at overall what are the options, and I do appreciate council having staff pursue the options of what is going to be best for the city and that sustains and that is fiscally makes sense for us. Because we really have a lot more things to do in our city, not just homelessness. So looking at how the county can be a service and be a great partner is very key, and regional approach. And I want to give Mayor Aquanetta Warren a shout out because she led the effort on the western region of our area, and the fact that we're trying to put the effort on the eastern region. That's important to make sure that all the cities, and so like you said, we are all now hands on deck to address homelessness as a region for San Bernardino County. So that is beautiful. So thank you. And thank you for reaching out and making sure that we reach out to the cities if there's interest. And I think that was it. And I just want to, and thank you, Cassandra, for mentioning the affordable housing workshop. I was invited to a affordable housing workshop over Cedar Riverside. Mayor Patricia Locke Dawson had spearheaded one through SCAG, Southern California Association of Government, which we are a part of. And we had other elected officials there, and it was just really talking about how do we create more affordable housing. Now, affordable housing could mean a lot of things, right? Well, it could be low income, moderate, and middle, and having options. So it was very enlightening to listen to other cities addressing affordable housing. So to do that, thank you. And if we could really reach out to our partners such as Southern California Association of Government, SCAG, because they have resources that they could help our city to connect with experts or to, resources or potential developers or anyone that we can talk to, right, to lean to that since we are a member, as well as the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority as a member. They launched a housing trust. So whatever we could do to really lean to our partners, because regionally we're trying to make sure that no one's left behind. And especially on homelessness, especially on affordable housing, infrastructure, all of those things. I mean, Mount Vernon Bridge was a huge example of leaning to our partners, SBCTA leading that. That was significant for us to be successful. So, and leading California cities, there's that too. Again, council, thank you. There was a motion, a second. That's all for me, and this is really great. Yes, Mr. City Attorney.
Madam Mayor, I wanted to provide some information and another option based on two comments that I heard. The first was a comment that Councilmember Canas made. She was asking about what are the total costs for the navigation center. I pulled up the operator's agreement, Helping Hearts, and it is their responsibility to do facility maintenance. They are to conduct regular cleaning, maintenance, and pest control for all facility areas, and they have to report damages or safety concerns to the city within 24 hours. And they also have to provide 24-hour security, so hopefully that will mitigate any damages or safety concerns. That's first. Second is something that Councilmember Ortiz mentioned. Councilmember, you mentioned the anti-camping, and you do have something on the code. You have an anti-camping chapter. It's very simple, but that's something that we could look into beefing up. And as an example, San Bernardino County recently, I think within the last 6 months, they updated their anti-camping ordinance to have a more robust ordinance after the U.S. Supreme Court decision from June of 24 that upheld local anti-camping ordinances. And so if the council would like, that's something that we can look into bringing back, a more robust anti-camping ordinance and crafting it in a way that makes it consistent with also our ACLU settlement agreement.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, to that point, thank you for bringing that up because we actually did already unanimously pass and provided direction to do just so. I had provided a future agenda item, and that was a couple months ago, and it was for us to adopt or update to the San Bernardino Encampment Ordinance to define persistent camping, prohibit encampments in sensitive areas, and establish progressive measures for multiple refusals. So we have provided direction to council, and that was a couple months ago. And again, it was unanimously approved. So if we could maybe integrate that, I thought, some of these items, because I think I had 2 items that were approved by the council that pertain to homelessness and how our city does go about addressing it, that were approved. And I was hoping they would be addressed within this council workshop, but I understand it was solely focused on the navigation center. But if we could find a way to integrate that into some of the homeless research that you guys are doing, I would really appreciate that, because again, it was unanimously approved and it did have time constraints. It was 45 days, which has well passed. What was it? How this was September, I believe.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. All right, there's a motion second. Please call for the votes. Or vote digitally, right? On your screen. Can you vote online?
I could take a
voice votes. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra,
Yes.
Councilmember Figueroa,
Yes.
Councilmember Charette, Mayor Pro Tem Canas,
Yes.
Councilmember Flores,
Yes.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you, Council. That was a robust, excellent conversation with the staff. Thank you so much. The meeting is now adjourned. 6:35 p.m. The next regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council and the Mayor and City Council acting as the successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency, and the Mayor and City Council acting as the San Bernardino City Housing Authority, and Mayor and City Council of the City of San Bernardino acting as the San Bernardino Joint Powers Finance Authority will adjourn to the regular meeting to be held on January 21st, 2026 at the Feldheim Central Library located at 555 West 6th Street, San Bernardino, California 92410. Closed session will begin at 4 p.m. and open session will begin at 5 p.m. Good night, everyone. Get home safely and Happy New Year again.